Hello everyone, welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is the 26th of February of 2025, and I am Nick, and this is Quinn, and it's a manga talking time. How's everybody doing?
Well, the audience can't answer you, so I will answer for them. Collectively, they're all doing great. They're beautiful. The world's just great for people like that. So for me, I'll say also good. I wish I was as handsome and as beautiful as those people, but they are the good ones, and we are the trash meant to jester for their entertainment.
And that's why we have been chosen as their entertainment. Yeah. Everyone loves to see the weird-looking people entertaining.
Now, Nick, if someone were to tell you, they're like, hey, you can keep doing Weekly Manga Recap. It was almost going to get banned, but it didn't. But they're like, you can still do it. However, you will have to wear this jester's costume as you record. Like, we go back to like full-on medieval times, and they're like, we do want some entertainment, but you will have to have hats on that jingle as you talk about these things.
I don't like hats, so that might be tricky. I suppose we don't have to like move around a whole lot, so the jingling wouldn't be that bad.
No.
Can I take the jester costume off afterward?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Your life is your own. You are allowed to sort of do as you please. However, when the podcast ends, you do have to kind of somersault out of the out of frame. You have to kind of like, woo,
That might be a deal breaker, not as a matter of like, want, but as a matter of like ability.
You're like a physical necessity is not looking so great.
Let's see. Get to keep on doing Weekly Manga Recap. Have to learn to cartwheel.
It could be more like oh gosh, what do you call like a somersault? You could do that instead. It doesn't have to be a full on cartwheel.
Is a somersault easier than a cartwheel?
Yeah, I could do a somersault. I never did a cartwheel in my life, but I absolutely somersaulted in my life. Isn't like somersaulting just like getting into a ball and rolling?
I think that's just called a forward roll. I believe a
somersault. I think. What?
I can do a forward roll once a week. That's no problem.
Okay.
Somersault, I think, might require leaving the ground in some capacity while just doing so, which might be where the problem occurs.
No. Somersault is where a move where a person turns their body over, bringing their feet over their head. Oh, wait, hold on. This is the AI. This is the AI instruction. I can't follow that.
Ignore this.
A movement, as in gymnastics, in which a person turns forward or backward in a complete revolution along the ground or in the air, bringing the feet over the head.
Okay. If it can be along the ground, then yes, I guess that would be not that big a deal then. Okay. I will have to consider this in greater detail. So.
All right. Well, now we know for that scenario, we got to prepare. Every week we're going to come up with a new wacky scenario to be aware of.
Scenarios to keep the podcast going.
Like next week. All right, Nick, aliens have taken over the show. They say you can still do it, but you got to do a couple different ad reads in Mandarin because these aliens think the language sounds really funny, but they do still want it to be authentic to our audience. They have a lot of integrity, but very little respect for us.
300 years in the future, our podcast will be the only one still standing, and it'll be because we have prepared for these different scenarios where other podcasts neglected to do so.
I think they
may have had financing behind them, celebrities, sponsors that are deep in with the government or whatever, but none of them prepared for the inevitability of having to wear jester costumes or alien invasions, both of which are equally troublesome possibilities. I think they might have to deal with.
I think we'll be the last podcast surviving because we're the only one that's still linked on the old that guy with the glasses message boards. So, but like someone will discover that and they're like, the last podcast.
Did you get to do anything fun recently?
Oh, I mean, I played a video game. That's pretty fun, right?
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
What video game is it?
It's Octopath Traveler 2.
Oh, all right.
I played it, started it. I started it like when it came out, stopped it, and I decided like, you know what? Let's go back and finish this. So I'm trying to finish it now.
I watched the third Sonic the Hedgehog movie with Nicole over the weekend.
How did you love it?
I thought it was pretty good. I didn't love it as much as the other two.
What?
Yeah.
Did you not like Sonic Adventure 2?
I really like Sonic Adventure 2. I think that's the problem.
Ah, okay. Maybe that's it then.
I don't know. I knew I was going to have a problem with it, but I really did not like Keanu Reeves' Shadow.
Okay.
Nah.
That's fair.
So that really affected it as well. I liked that they had the balls to actually do the Maria storyline. But when it came time for Shadow to be, emotional, he just kind of sounded like Keanu Reeves. So
Fair. Now, did you bring this up as a tangent into Beaten Motion, or did you say this just to break my heart in front of the audience?
I actually said it because I wanted to say, like, if anyone out there wants to, like, make me put my money where my mouth is, or my mouth where my mouth is, when I keep on saying, like, I would like to play Shadow the Hedgehog in something, I'm saying I would like to play Shadow the Hedgehog in something.
Well, you just got to do what I did last season, Nick, at Dice Funk, where you just play Shadow the Hedgehog, but you called him a different name.
Nah, it's got to be like an actual thing.
Oh, okay.
It's like, yeah, I don't care if it's going to be some sort of like fan project that literally nobody watches. I want to have a try at actually doing it. I have no voice acting resume to speak of whatsoever, but trust me.
Because I played this one season at Dice Funk, and it's basically Shadow the Hedgehog. Yeah, I got this as a gift. And this is basically my playing Shadow the Hedgehog, and I think that's just what I'm going to use Dice Funk for in the future. I'm like, you know what? No one's ever going to let me be Emma Frost in my life. I'm just going to play her as a dragon. No one can stop me.
Emma Frost Dragon, yeah.
Yeah. Nick, we have to talk about Beaten Motion, which
also I have this now. So.
Oh, that's awesome! Where'd you get that?
eBay. For our audio only listeners, I've got volume 1 of Ice Shield 21 here. I have been trying to find it for years, literally, but unfortunately, it has not been re-released in English since it came out in like 2005. There are literally advertisements in the back of this book that are for like IS, I think it is, just like, and like the original Shonen Jump English magazine.
Yeah.
That only came out like every few months, and it has just not gotten a re-release since then. It's not available to purchase digitally, and so my desperate plea again. Viz, please, for the love of God, re-release this fucking manga so I don't have to spend $40 a volume on it, which I did for this. It had been like I could not find it below $80.
I might check with me later. I might have the next couple volumes as well. They might be
some of the volumes are easier to find than others.
Yeah.
But volume 1 was like it's just out of print, and it was like one of the ones that had sold the best. So
yeah.
You couldn't find it anywhere.
I will let you know. I'll look at it later. Nick, this was a segue into Beaten Motion. I had a whole joke about doing a jerk off motion as my general philosophy for this manga. It's in the past though. Let's not worry about it. Nick, what is Beat and or Motion?
So Beaten Motion, it's a manga that came out early 2023 on Shonen Jump Plus. Just finished up in 2025, last month, January. Created by Naoki Fujita. It's got 5 volumes out in Japan right now. Nothing out in English, but you can read the entire thing on Shonen Jump and on Manga Plus if you have subscriptions to either of those. It came out in a really weird way, which is that Naoki Fujita won a competitive reality show that was put on by Shonen Jump called Million Tag, where there were these 6 prospective mangaka who got matched up with experienced Shonen Jump editors, went through a series of challenges, and the last challenge was to pitch a manga that was judged by like the mangaka of like Chainsaw Man and Jigoku Raku and like an anime producer for Netflix. And winning it meant you got a cash prize, you got to be published in Shonen Jump Plus, and you get a Netflix adaptation. The Netflix adaptation is supposed to come out later this year for Beat in Motion. And the story is that there is this college student who's kind of directionless named Tatsuhiko who wanted to be an animator when he was a kid, basically got called weird for wanting to draw people because, you know, he was being a good student and using people around him that he thought moved in interesting ways as animation references, and he was told that's creepy, don't do that. So he stopped animating because nobody else was into it, joined a band instead. That fell apart too. So now he's just kind of directionless, doesn't have any passions in life, goes out drinking one day with some friends, and runs into this girl who gets really pissed off at him when he, you know, in his, you know, kind of drunken state is talking about like, why are you guys, you know, bothering to have dreams for? Nothing's ever going to work out for you. And she gets mad at him and says, you've got no right to talk to people that way. Fuck you. And she kind of like gives him a big wake up call by acting like she's going to kick him into traffic, even though he's never in any danger. It's a weird jumping off point. But it's what happens in the first chapter.
Yeah.
And so Tatsuhiko decides, you know what, I guess, yeah, I might as well actually throw myself into something. So he goes home and for a couple of weeks works on an animation, posts it online, and it goes viral and catches the attention of this young musical artist that he really likes named Nico, who says, hey, your animation's really good. You want to make a music video with me? And he's like, oh, okay, sure. Goes to meet up with her. Wouldn't you know it, it's the girl that he ran into at the bar. And so what a coincidence in this world. And so the two of them hit it off. And so the beat in the series title comes from Nico, the musical artist, and the motion comes from the animator, Tatsuhiko, as the two of them try and achieve success by pursuing their creative paths. And also, it's a romance. The two of them kind of push each other and inspire each other and grow closer together as they're on this journey where they're helping each other out.
Yeah, I think you pretty much summed it all up. I think the only thing I need to add is just you should have probably done it with the expression of like, ah! Because every character in this series, when they get mad, kind of makes the exact same expression over and over again. It is deeply, deeply annoying. But
there's a bit of same facial structure problem that the manga suffers from, where like everyone's head, regardless of their expression, is always drawn with the same shape.
Yes.
So their jaw is always in the same place, regardless of the expression that their mouth is making, which of course means that since the jaw is not moving, only the mouth is being wider or narrower, and so it doesn't fit on the face as it should in a lot of cases. And it's really, really, really noticeable when it's a big bleh expression because the lips go out all the way to the edges of the face. It really does seem at certain points like the face was drawn, the head was drawn, and then like stock facial expressions were like pasted in over it in certain areas. It's
Sure.
unfortunate. I did actually, after it was pointed out to me how often that happens, start making tally marks every time that it happened.
Oh my god!
I got to 61 in this 48 chapter series.
So
which seems
about
right.
like 1.2, 0.3 per chapter is fucking crazy. It doesn't honestly surprise me a little bit that there is that situation here, as you mentioned earlier. Like, it makes sense that Beat in Motion is not like like this is a newcomer series,
Yes.
because there is a lot that you can kind of tell you always hear like the rough around the edges, like sort of euphemism used, and this is like the edges are like brand new. Like this thing hasn't really faced too much scrutiny. It feels like obviously I'm sure the challenge to get to this point was very difficult, but I think just conceptually this is a very, how do I say this without being mean? I think this is a very immature series. that is trying to speak as though it has a lot of worldly maturity, and honestly kind of comes away a little insulting a lot of the times. I found, I mean, just on a concept, it's very funny. Like, we always talk about, like, you know, PPP and Star Beethoven right now. Like, trying to make music work in manga is like a hilarious thing. I think it might only be beaten out by trying to make the moving picture version of a manga in a manga. You're like, come on, man, I can't see any of the animation. I don't care about anything this dude's made.
I did actually, because I was really curious why this was picked as the winner of Million Tag. And the series is on YouTube, on Shonen Jump's official channel. It's, of course, in Japanese, but they've provided English captioning for it. So I watched the last episode of the show to see, like, okay, what do people have to say about this? And also, what did they have to say about the other series? And why didn't the other series win? And the impression that I got overall, because, of course, you have to keep in mind that they do show snippets of, like, Fujimoto's with, the other judges talking about the series in very short snippets. They were probably talking about each of them for at least half an hour and cut it down drastically in order to allow for the pace of the show. So there's and of course, it's a reality show in general. Manipulated editing, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
But the impression that I got from that was that it seemed as though, although Beat in Motion was probably not the most imaginative of the series, because there was one that was like salesman battle manga, as in, like, it's a battle manga where the gimmick is that each of the competitors is a salesman who is demonstrating the abilities of the weapons and armor that they wear for combat. There was one that was like this romance between an immortal goddess and a man who serves her, kind of thing. And so these things, they're much more fantastical and imaginative. But the criticism kind of tended to be like, all right, it doesn't feel like this really out there concept has been very fully realized. Whereas in Beat in Motion, it seemed like it was already like, this is a solid premise. The characters are fully introduced. The dynamic is fully explained. And there was also, like, some excitement over, like, oh, if we want to do this for a Netflix adaptation, you could have the music videos and stuff that they make be part of the Netflix animation and show off that way. So there's a logic to it there where you can say, like, it's not necessarily that they picked the best one as the one that was like, okay, this is like the safest option to pick, both in terms of running a manga in Jump Plus and putting an animation based on it on Netflix. The others might have a higher ceiling, but they have a lower floor.
Sure.
So if you look at it that way, then it makes sense why it was chosen. And I will say, like, I had been reading Beat in Motion, every 2 weeks when a chapter was posted. It was something that, like, it only took me a couple minutes to read it. But it had kind of charmed me to the point that I wanted to see where it went. And I came away from it at the end of that experience going like, oh, this is kind of disappointing. So when there were a lot of people who were reacting on our channel by saying like, oh, that series is not good, Nick, I was like, I get where you're coming from. Like, it's not very good.
I can see why people enjoy it, absolutely, but yeah, I will not exist here to tear this thing down that people love. I will simply say, I found the way that Nico speaks to Tatsu to be very arrogant at the start. She just kind of speaks with this, like, authority that's like, well, if you have a dream, you have to chase it. And the idea of accepting that your dreams don't work out is cowardice and bullshit, and you're a bad person for doing that. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, statistically speaking, most people aren't going to work in the arts or be the most famous musician in Japan. Like, it just felt so pompous for a series where the characters get exactly what they want. The series doesn't, like, face reality at any point in time. And I think without ever really facing reality, like, they don't have hardships our characters never stumble. Even when they lose, they actually win. And it just keeps happening over and over until the series ends. And I'm like, well, this is just annoying then. This is just like an obnoxious, like kind of like almost fan service energy of just like everything will work out if you believe in your dreams. Like, yeah, I guess it's super convenient when your mother is like a super popular idol who, when it's revealed you're her daughter, faces zero consequences. Your relationship doesn't change at all. In fact, it just increased your popularity. You call this a controversy, but it actually just worked out for you perfectly.
I do think that there's a lot of cases where it just kind of does, things do just resolve too easily. The one point where it seems like there is an actual setback that's going to occur, it's like 4 chapters before the end of the manga.
Yeah.
So there's no time to actually dwell on it, because by that point it's basically been decided the series is wrapping up. So it's time to head towards, the nice happy ending. There might have been something that would have been meatier towards that ending there, because there's a moment where like Tatsuhiko does an animation and it just bombs. Like nobody likes it, and he spent months working on this project. I think it's like
a year and some change or something like that,
and nobody likes it. Like he comes like in last place in the competition he enters it in and stuff, and he spends like 1 chapter being upset, and then his friends like pull him out of the fun because they're like, all right, look, we're going to work on you on our next one. Like we all, like understand each other. We'll work toward our own project thing. And that one works out great. And so there's only really 1 chapter where he is actually in the funk, where he feels like he's, screwed everything up. When you think about, like, hey, this is a guy that could have had, I don't necessarily want to use the word relapse to describe him, like going back into the state that he was in, like at the beginning of the series, where he was full of self-doubt and everything. But it would be an obstacle that would make sense for him to deal with, of like, well, I guess that all those fears that I had were right then, that, I'm not good enough, or people don't like the stuff that I make. And then it would feel better when he comes out of that again and experiences triumph ultimately. But it does feel as though a lot of the times the series does play it safe in a lot of senses. And that being said, though, I think that there is a lot of good that does happen in the manga. I mean, I did take note of like all the times where there's just like, an example of like a bad visual. But I also made notes on a bunch of different good visuals that happen. And those happen, every now and again. I thought there was, some nice little imaginations that happen. There's just these moments where you see either Nico or Tatsuhiko in this like moment where they're just totally immersed in their creativity of writing something or imagining something, and you just kind of like get this sense of what they're going through.
I'm sorry. I'm very distracted by the fact that I just got a notification from Viz Manga that you can, in fact, read Beat in Motion inside the Shonen Jump vault right now.
Oh well, there you go.
There you go.
We thought that you might be interested in this series in Shonen Jump because you've been reading it. So, and I think that there is as well like that stretch from like. So a few years ago, when I was actually reading through this at my own pace, chapter to chapter as it came out, there was one chapter where it's a flashback to when Tatsuhiko like first encounters Nico's music when they're like both in high school, and how at first he's like really doesn't like it. He's like, that's nothing, because he is a creative person, and basically he's experiencing that emotion that you start to have when you start to realize like I'm not the most amazing person in the world, because there are people who are my age who are way more successful than I am. And so he's in denial over it. Then he like, he's in a band at the time. So he goes home and he works really hard on a song. And then he comes back and he presents it to his friends. And he's like, oh shit, I basically just recreated this Nico song that I was in denial about liking. And in that chapter, there's these nice visuals that happen of him, like, what he's thinking when he's experiencing the song. And I thought, like, hey, if this could be like the standard that the series lives up to, this could be a good manga from this point forward. And I feel like from that point, there's about, I would say like 15 chapters in a row where it's decent to pretty good. That's where you get like the stuff where Nico reunites with her friend Miyu, and it brings up all the conflict that happened between them, how they had a falling out and stuff, and how it had to do with the fact that Nico has all this feeling of guilt for, she blames herself for ending her mother's musical career because she was a little selfish as, you know, a middle school student. A little selfish. Not very.
Yeah.
And also she did not affect her mom's decision in that way, but she thinks she did. And there's a, you know, a stretch that I think is like, it's really good if you're like into the characters, and I think it shows the best parts of them. But then it starts getting more into like, oh, well, we got to do like Tatsuhiko's animation thing, and that's really boring. He enters this competition and he does well. And it's like, all right, so do you get to see the music video he did? Not really. Did you get to? Does anything happen at the awards? No. He wins. He gets some attention from a guy he likes. What happens after that? He does another project. He doesn't do well. He works on another one. He does better. Yeah.
Well, actually, it goes. It's even more muted. It's like, what happens there? He does another project, does do well. Then he does another one, and all of his dreams come true.
It skips right to the end. And also, I feel that in that stretch where he's working on that second animation project, the one that does poorly, that's after the point where he and Nico start dating, and their relationship all of a sudden gets very, very boring, and just not compelling at all.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that it's just because she just kind of like is just like an accessory to him for a bit, because he's just so focused on working, which is, you know, whatever. And then when you conclude, some of it kind of comes back a little bit because, you know, it's a lot more focused on their actual like relationship and their romance. And because she has this very nice thing that she says when she's thinking about how much she loves Tatsuhiko, which is that she's kind of been asked by her friends and stuff like, why do you like that guy? Why'd you start loving him? And she's like, I mean, I don't know, vibes, I guess. Like because she's like, I just like spending time with him, and so that's it. And I mean, that's can be maybe a bit of an unsatisfying answer, but to me, it struck me as very genuine. Where it's just like, I just like spending time with him. It's like, yeah, sure. Sometimes that's just all that it takes. And so it kind of like goes on a bit of a, if I had to like chart things out, I think it starts off pretty rough. It gets pretty good during that like 10 to 15 chapter stretch after about 10 chapters. And then it goes down, and then it goes quite down. And then it goes up a little bit at the end. I understand why the series was canceled when you look at the stretch from the time like it stops focusing on Nico's career and focuses on Tatsuhiko's instead. Because for as much as him being the protagonist and a lot of the creative angst in the series being focused on his creative angst, it doesn't, not a lot really satisfying comes from it. It's just like, well, he creative angst and then he makes something.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I feel like I had a slightly different trajectory in that I thought this series started at the bottom. I hated the first couple chapters, like despised them. Then the series started to get a little bit better the less Nico was on screen, because I was like, cool. Maybe she's just the problem child in this series for me. But then it would be more about Nico and Miyu, and I'm like, oh, actually, I really like these two together. They actually,
Nico and Miyu are great.
They're like a good bounce off of one another. I think Tatsu's actually the problem. And then Tatsu and Nico spend more time together, and I'm like, oh yeah, these two just don't have a chemistry. Like they just kind of shout like it's like a less interesting version of like Asta and Yuno, where they're just like, I'm going to be the best of my thing ever, and they just kind of like,
you're gonna be the best ever.
Yeah, they just kind of fuel each other off of that. And and this is before they start a relationship. And when they started pushing into that direction, I was just like, ugh, no. I already didn't care for it, but the one thing this relationship had going for it was that it was not romantic. I thought it was the only cool thing about it was at the very beginning when Tatsu was a little bit awkward around Nico and she says something, she's like, "You're not going to try to hit on me, are you?" And I was like, cool. She sets like a clear boundary. I am not in this for that. We are two people who believe in like following your dreams, and we are going to spur each other forward with just camaraderie. And then by the end, it's like, actually, we love each other.
There's a funny sequence right at the beginning where they're talking about the music video stuff, and Nico like kind of, because Tatsuya goes like, "I've got something really important to talk to you about," and she's like, "Oh no, he's gonna ask me out. I am not drunk enough for this." And starts ordering all these beers and knocking them back, and ends up punching him because she remembers, that first night that they had together where she was really upset with him. And I like Nika's energy in those moments when she's just like not into that, and she just knows what she wants to go for. I will say that while I do like the final conclusion of like, oh, I don't really know why I fell in love with him, that's fine. But when it starts, it's not as likable when that's the explanation, because in the first time that they actually are aware of who the other is and they're spending time with each other, Tatsuhiko's like, "Oh no, like there's this girl who really hated me when we were out drinking. I got to get away from her." So he makes this excuse like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to cover a shift in a couple hours so that he can get out of the meeting really quickly." And then it just immediately transitions to him going, "Huh, I'm having a good time with her." And you don't see why they're having a good time. They're just talking with each other, and their expressions gradually grow happier.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's such a show don't tell thing that you need to do. Like, you've got to show why they like spending time with each other. Once they're at the point where they're okay with each other, it's like, that's all fine, but it's like scene missing. And then you're just expected to buy into that they're grooving with each other. They're having a good time with each other, even if it's not even necessarily romantic at that point. And it gets to a point where there's a moment where Nico has this she's basically maybe about to have a negative moment because the world finds out it's like, oh, she's famous pop idol Nagisa's daughter and stuff. And that's when Tatsuhiko, he's worried about her. He comes to visit her, ends up showing her the completed music video he's been working for her for the first time. And because she gets to see what someone else experienced from this song that meant a lot to her when she made it, it gives her this big boost of inspiration.
Sure.
And you can also see hey, they're there's a big connection that happens there between the two of them. I buy that, but it does feel as though there are certain things that it's this is not done. There's certain steps that you skipped along the way in order to make this happen, and the series can't be good fully without them. It's not a fully convincing development that happens between them. And so on the front of, you've got three things basically going on. You've got the musical career, you've got the animation career, and you've got the relationship. I feel like the animation career is garbage. I don't like the way it progresses at all. I think that it just hits beats and then is just done. I feel like there was some nice things when it's early on, when you're seeing Tatsuhiko really trying to come to grips with why he stopped to begin with and why he's trying to keep going now. Nico's is flawed, but it's got her interactions with Miyu, who is a childhood friend of hers that she reunites with, and there was a falling out between them that they get over, and that's all really good. The conclusion happens a little way too easily, which is just and now she's famous, and that's just kind of it.
Yep.
And then you've got the relationship, which is also missing stuff. So those three things, there's a problem with all of them. There's parts that I like about all of them, but there's problems to all of them.
I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody going into this manga and saying, I really liked it because it's, it's very positive on following your dreams and chasing them. But if that's your thing, if you need that, go, or you really enjoy that, go for it. I just fundamentally think there's a glaring issue in being like, follow your dreams, but don't accept that there will be like real life challenges you will face that will interfere in this. Like there's very little, like they talk about money very briefly about how being an animator doesn't pay super well. So Tatsu kind of has to like survive on ramen for a period of time, but like it's not like it ever like makes him lose weight or makes him tired. Like he's eating nothing. Like he's 22, I guess, or whatever. So like, yeah, he's, you know, maybe that's not the time or place for it. But I just like, I don't know. It just seems like kind of irresponsible to make a series like this for children. I feel like you need to like, I don't know, maybe Haikyuu just changed my mind. But I'm like, if you just tell people to like widely inspire for their greatest dreams and nothing will ever impact them, like when they get knocked down, it's like, what, like, do you show that? Like, no, not really. Because actually, sometimes the next chapter, you make a better thing and all your dreams come true. And it's like, all right, well, whatever, man. This is just for me.
So what you're saying, Quinn, is that this Hope Core manga is not for you.
It's not Hope Core. This is different. I don't know what to tell you. They're different things.
I know. I'm just kind of...
No, it is. I won't say that there's nothing in the series I didn't enjoy, or that there's nothing in the series that I enjoyed. I actually started to kind of dig it around halfway through towards the end. I was like, all right, it's starting to like, basically once the stuff with Nico's mom ended, because I thought that was like a weird nothing burger of a conclusion. I was like, so there's no issue between Nico and her mother. Her mom seemed like she was angry at her, but never like nothing ever came of it. She just kind of ended that conversation, and every time we saw her, she's just a cool mom afterwards. And it's just like, I don't get it. I guess it's just not. I don't know. But after that, I was like, cool. We're moving forward. We got other stuff to do, and I was like, this is fine. Like, I could see why this didn't last, but I'm like, you know, if this were in our recap, I wouldn't be like screaming every week if I have to recap it.
Right. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, so that's kind of it. I'm sure that probably Naoki Fujito will get something else because, I mean, you know, they got their foot in the door.
Sure.
So we'll see if the next one is more interesting. But with that being said, Quinn, I think we got some manga to talk about today beyond that. So let's talk about Ichi the Witch! Chapter 23. Gokuraku the Brutalizer. I wanted to just say the story so far, written by Descartes as the guest author this week. Descartes does one of her, you know, self illustrated versions of the recap of things recently. And so we begin with, thanks to the uber talented and ultra competent Descartes, the world hater magic was sent packing, crying for his mommy the whole way.
It's very funny because we now have the context into the Descartes is kind of right in a lot of her little things. Like, she adds details to make herself look even cooler, but I'm like, I mean, she did do that. Like, he didn't run home crying to his mommy, but she did kind of win that fight.
I like that Togeis is the only other witch there, and she's captioned Ice the Klutz.
Yeah.
So, new prophecy came down, which is that they need to go to the country of Bakugami and hunt human hater magics, and there we'll find a new companion to help us save the world, or so it says. Go, Descartes the Great, and groupies, find your new companions.
Always, Ichi is always picking his nose in these little things.
Komugi looks very strange in that. She looks like a rabbit.
I honestly think that Descartes just doesn't know who Komugi is. Like,
Aww. So they have reached the realm of Bakugami and have come across the realm of this human hater magic that apparently is a spider called Origumo. 3 confirmed victims and uses its sturdy silk to trap its prey and then devour them. And so they're like, all right, well, let's go and get this thing and get us a companion. And immediately Descartes grabs Ichi and is like, hold on, stop it. You're not allowed to go charging in unprepared. Don't get careless. Don't pick up sketchy stuff off the ground. You understand? And Ichi says, yeah, no, woof, to say you understand. It's like, I'm not going to do that. No. Say woof. No. I'm not going to do it. Just like shaking. And I do like that Kamugi's like, there's something going on between these two. And I thought like, oh, this will be a nice little subtle thing of like showing Kamugi's observation of with her new friends. And then we see a flashback that Ichi tried to do the same apprentice student master contract with her, with him as the master. And she's like, what the fuck? That's all he said was like, be family with me.
I like her adorable reaction later. She's like, I wouldn't have minded reading what that contract was about, basically.
Yeah, it's okay for her to have a crush on Ichi. She seems age appropriate for him. Descartes leads the way in, and she says like, hey, so do we have a report about anyone trying to acquire the Origumo? And Kamugi says, no, why? And they come across a realm, an opening in the web where the poor Origumo has been turned into a balloon animal, basically. Legs tied up into neat little bows by this mysterious magic assaulter. And also there's like a cage that it's tied around. I don't know where that came from.
Its body is the cage. You can see it in the panel where they show off the Origumo.
Oh, so it is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the Origumo is like, please stop doing this. And the guy's like, I'm gonna acquire you. Tell me how to acquire you. He's like, no, you can't acquire magics. You're a man. So there we go. And so the man jumps away, and then he kisses a ring that he's wearing, and the Origumo goes, no, don't do that. And he gives it a little flick, big old forehead flick, pata, which makes the spider cough up blood. So must have hurt. Great observation, Nick. Must have hurt and coughed up blood.
No, I mean, we wouldn't have known otherwise. I might have thought, I was like, well, Spider might have enjoyed that. Might have been like a, ooh.
Yeah. A joyous blood.
Yeah, it could be one of those kinky spiders, Nick. Wasn't that the name of your high school band, Kinky Spiders?
There's no kinky spiders, Quinn. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
No kinky spiders in manga, especially. Definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
However, it turns out that there is a report on this man of his previous activity, which is that he's on the Witches Association's official dangerous persons lists. He challenges magics, beats them to a pulp, and leaves without acquiring them. He is named Gokuraku the Brutalizer. And Gokuraku, meanwhile, continues to, with a big old smile on his face, mercilessly flick the Origumo. And eventually he grabs the thing's head, and the Origumo says, I keep telling you, you can't use magic! My trial is to destroy my cage and cut off my horn inside it, and you've done that 12 times! It's not gonna work! And Gokuraku just very casually rips its head off and goes to break the horn inside of the cage, and he's like, you're magical, so find a way to make it work. And yeah, this poor little spider, look, it's got 4 eyes that are all crying. This poor thing. He's just like, look, I'm just going to keep on beating you up until you change your mind. I'm going to beat you until you let me acquire you. And goes to punch him. And then Ichi lands on his arm. And he uses Inazuri to slash through the Origumo's horn, which means that he has acquired Origumo. And then he looks at Gokuraku and says, hey, if you can't kill it, don't hunt it. And Gokuraku, you'd think, would be pissed off, but he's instead just like, holy shit! You acquired a magic! And you're a boy! Are you a boy witch? And he says, oh, yes. Does that mean men can be witches too? What's your name? Ichi. Alright, Ichan! Make me a male witch too, okay? And that is our chapter. Gokuraku's gotten his hopes up again.
Yeah, they can't all be winners, Nick.
Aww.
No, this is fine. I enjoy... I think the only thing that kind of disappointed me, I always get suckered into world building in these series, and I always think it's going to be so cool to see it. But I feel as though magic hunting is absolutely already taking a backseat in this series to everything else. And this is very familiar to when we were reading Magi, and I was like, Are we gonna go back to any of the labyrinths? Like, we haven't done any labyrinths in so long, guys.
I kind of understand that, given that it's like, oh, we found a magic. It was introduced and defeated in one chapter. So if you're looking forward to the magics, it's not a very good showcase.
Yeah, it's fine. I like this. This new character seems like they'll be entertaining. There's good stuff here. You know, I'm happy.
I really, really want Origumo to get their peanuts. Their poor spider. I mean,
technically they are already, because I assume their peanuts would be not getting their horn ripped off over and over again. And right now they're in like magical forest land with Aurora and the others. So
I just hope Aurora is nice to him. You know.
Well, are kings usually nice to their people?
I don't know. Are kings usually nice to spiders? I think is the really important question.
That's like a fucking Shakespeare riddle. Like fucking.
Are kings nice to spiders?
Like fucking Macduff asked that to Macbeth before he killed him. Like, are kings nice to spiders? He's like, what?
What the fuck? Ah, my eyes!
Well, he's already confused there. He's like, C-section, not from woman. This is some horse shit. This is some real ticky-tack shit you're pulling on me, Macduff.
All right.
Blue box.
Yeah, Blue Box, chapter 185, A Problem. Ayame is very upset because she and Kyo have lost the first round of the doubles round-robin matches. She's very upset because she lost to Haruto and Chinatsu's team. So, I like that someone's like, all right, they've got to win now. And they're like, wait, when did we make this graph? Like, no one saw it being made, I guess. So, the tournament continues. It's going to be Kyo and Ayame versus Taiki and Akari. Taiki is being forced to play with his left hand, which, again, does not seem fair. He's the only badminton player who's got to use his left hand.
But he's the best, Nick. Everyone acknowledges it.
I guess. He's still doing pretty okay. And then all of a sudden, Haruto gets an idea, and he starts talking to Chinatsu. He's like, so what is it about Taiki-senpai that made you fall in love with him? And Taiki's like, oh, what the hell? What? He just messes up in mid-swing. And Chinatsu does not seem to grasp that this is a nefarious ploy at all whatsoever. She very honestly and straightforwardly answers and says, there's lots of things. Mostly it's like, I love how passionate he is. Haruto says, isn't that kind of suffocating? Nope. It's just the right amount of passion. Aww. And then Haruto is like, all right, let me take a low blow on this. Ah, so physical appearance wasn't taken into account. I mean, I wouldn't say it was a deciding factor, but I do think he's handsome. You're such a good girlfriend, Chinatsu.
So adorable. She is just earnestly like, yeah, I actually do like all these things about him, but I wasn't motivated by attractiveness at the first. You know, it was more about his personality. And the entire time she's saying this, knowing he can hear them. He's already reacted to hearing them already. So, and Haruto has been talking to him throughout this. She's just, she's like, you asked me a question, I will now answer it.
Yeah. So eventually, you know, Haruto's like, well, I mean, I agree that Taiki-senpai, he's a hard worker, but would you have liked him if he was a hard worker and bad at badminton? And she says, that's kind of a hard question. I mean, I think I would have. But I like Taiki as he is now. So there's no point thinking about an alternate timeline. Good. Don't entertain this bullshit anymore. That's a stupid question to ask someone. Like, well, but he is good at badminton, so who fucking cares? Like,
it's just very amusing. Like, I really think you have to assume Chinatsu has not picked up on what Haruto is doing, but it's also just like, nah, I love my boyfriend. He's very cool. I don't give a shit about any of this. I can't even go to the game anyways. Who cares about these tickets? She's just like, I'm going to talk about how much I love my boyfriend.
Taiki gets really upset, goes for a left-hand smash, and Haruto's like, what an uncreative goddamn attack thing. But Kyo returns it, and he says, respect a genuine lefty. And Taiki's like, I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'm just being handicapped. And Kyo says, true left-handed smash. Kyo, no, wait, this was my moment to shine.
Lazarus in our Discord will be able to use that panel in her left-handed character's Tumblr page, I believe. So you may make sure you screen cap that one to include in it.
So Kyo, the true lefty, gets he and Ayame a win, meaning they go 1-1. Taiki and Chinatsu start off with a loss, and now time for the final match for them against it's Taiki and Akari versus Haruto and Chinatsu. And so Taiki's like, all right, I gotta focus this time. And Chinatsu has a cute little moment where she's like, I'm on the same court as Taiki. Aww.
It's cute. It's very adorable.
So Taiki and Akari keep on going. Haruto is merciless, and eventually he's like, why you? And Haruto says, you want me to go easy on you? And Taiki says, no! Because of course he doesn't. He's that kind of guy. He keeps on going after it. We get some volleys back and forth between them. Eventually, Taiki manages to start returning a few shots here and there. And Chinatsu, meanwhile, is just like, Taiki looks so cool right now. Oh, I love her. But then eventually Nagisa comes out to the court, and she just like gets to be like, oh, they look like they're having fun. And Nagisa says, I wish I could let her repeat this grade.
Like, what a sweet sentiment. But I do like Ayame or her friend chiming in and be like, that's not a good, don't do that.
That's not a good thing. Don't make her hold back a year. That would be bad. And eventually, things come down to it, and looks like Taiki and Akari managed to pull it out in the end, which means it's a tie because every single team won one match and lost one match. It's very easy for a tie to happen in a 3-team round robin.
Yes.
So, Ayame says, we'll decide this via rock, paper, scissors. And Chinatsu, which is how they picked the teams to begin with, by the way.
I hope they did it again and they all just picked the exact same thing.
Good old rock.
Yeah.
So reliable. And Chinatsu barges in and says, like, hey, Ayame, we had a good time. As thanks for coming up with the idea, you should have the tickets. And everyone's just kind of fine with that. They give the tickets to Ayame.
I like specifically, none of the boys gave a shit. They're all over there because they're all members of the badminton club. So they're all just talking about the badminton games they just played, essentially.
Nerds. So I was like, all right, thanks. And then Akari says, hey, would you go with your boyfriend? And Ayame says, I mean, I thought about doing that, but boys don't care about romance. And Akari says, that is not true. If it's with someone they like, then they're happy for the chance to spend time with them. I know the same would be true of your boyfriend, Ayame-senpai. And Kyo could hear this. He's in the background there. And Ayame's like, okay, then I'll ask him. Everyone starts to leave the gym. As they're going out, Ayame says, hey, thanks, because, I got to score these tickets because of your help. And Kyo's like, nah. But she says, you looked really cool making that left-handed smash. And Kyo turns to her and he says, you shouldn't go calling guys that aren't your boyfriend cool. And Ayame is like,
oof. Because he says it like very casually too. Like he doesn't look angry when he says, he's just like, you shouldn't call guys who aren't your boyfriends cool. And it's just, it's brutal.
Yeah. So everyone starts going their separate ways. Chinatsu and Nagisa head off, and Nagisa's like, hey, let's get Inamata to play basketball next time. And Chinatsu's like, I'll get too competitive. I'll kill him. But Nagisa says, like, hey, you know what? Inamata's pretty cool. He was the guy that you were staying with. He helped convince your dad to let you stay until the Winter Cup. And she says, I've got a lot to thank him for. And Nagisa says, yeah, and I guess we should be grateful to him too. And then she says, by the way, when you start living on your own again, is that gonna kind of like be a problem? And Johnson's like, what are you talking about? And she says, well, like if you have a girlfriend who lives on her own, I mean, like when you were living together, you kind of like had to hold back, and so you could be kind of like oblivious about certain things, and you just kind of need to be careful. And Chinatsu, like, just realizes what sex is, basically. Like,
it's so adorable because her friend is like, I have to talk to this girl.
Yeah.
I just have to float it out there and see how she responds. And we can clearly see that, like, it's probably good she did float this out there, because otherwise it probably never would have come up in Shinatsu's mind. She would just be like, do.
And then she's like, it'll be fine.
It's just the end of the chapter. It's just her being like, I'm sure it'll work out.
Okay. She's so innocent and precious. I love these two idiots. They're perfect for each other. It's wonderful.
Yeah, honestly,
Nice
I wish we've gotten more Nagisa throughout this series. I wish that we could have gotten to see more of this friendship kind of develop, and not even develop, but just like be prominent throughout the series. As is, I like this little moment. I think the chapter itself is pretty cool. You know, I like what we have going on, but I do agree with Eerie Gray in the chat that I wish Akari could get like her own plot line in this series, please. I like her. She's a fun character.
Maybe she and Nagisa can start dating. I don't know.
Whoa, that's crazy. Ugh, it's going to be so tough. She's leaving next year, Nick. They have so little time together. They got to hurry.
Yeah, that'll be the only reason they don't end up together.
Yeah. Well, I'm already writing the fan fictions now. They're Space Boy Cowboys in my mind.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I do like all that stuff. It's just the eternal pain that comes from wanting to see Ayame and Kyo get their shit together and get together. And it feels like that's just not going to happen.
We had to wait, 100 chapters for Taiki and Junatsu to get together, so, you know, hold out for another 50, guys.
Well, so, question. I don't think so, but I just want to throw it out there. Do you think when Ayame is like, hey, I'll go ask my boyfriend and everything like that about that, do you think there was any part of her that wanted to see what Kyo's reaction was? Or do you think she was legitimately just like, no, I think you looked really cool making that smash?
I don't think that she was thinking about that.
That's why I was going to say, I didn't think so either, but it's always one of those things you like question for a moment. Ayame's so sweet. I wish we could see any level of what this relationship is like with this guy. It's a little, I don't want to say cloying, but like, it makes me a little bummed that we don't even get to see what this guy's like. It makes that relationship feel like very uninteresting and kind of crappy, but I guess that's sort of the point.
It makes it seem like an obstacle to be overcome.
Yeah, which is like kind of a shitty way to have a human being in your story, but whatever. Decent chapter. I enjoyed it. But Nick, it's time to Chainsaw Man.
Chapter 194. Fun School Festival. All right, last time, Yoru promised that she would have sex with Denji if he could kill the Death Devil. And we see this the next morning now, after all the mayhem that they caused the previous day. Denji gets out of bed. Yoru's still in the bed asleep, and he says, couldn't sleep, too many boners.
I forgot that's how he opened this chapter.
Yoru is still asleep, so Denji reaches for her, starts to go for the boob, and then tucks her in instead.
Hey.
Good boy, Denji.
Very, very, very Chad move of Denji there.
Denji sees on the TV some news being reported of all the destruction that was caused primarily by Yoru. Which is that there's like over 900 dead and 3,800 people missing. And so he goes into the kitchen to make breakfast, and he's like, man, she's the most dangerous chick yet. And I understand what his point is, which is that Yoru's unpredictable. Makima had a plan. Yoru doesn't really have a plan. And he starts talking to Pachita in his chest and says, like, there's a dangerous lady that likes me. Probably gotta get screwed over again.
He just knows, man. You know how, like, there is, like, if a portal opened up and they were like, look, I know you're not a big fan of the way your reality is going right now. Sight unseen, you could cross into this portal to a new universe, but we will let you know there is statistically a small chance it might be any world from Shonen Jump. I would be like, on principle, I can't go to the... I can't go to the fucking chains. I can't risk it. I would be so upset if I showed up and I saw like fucking Chainsaw Man running around and I was like, I'm just gonna find a gun and just end this real quick.
I have so many anxieties. There were so many devils that would get stronger than when I showed up.
Oh my god, the "Are you mad at me" devil would be fucking unstoppable. It would be relentless. It would just be like Godzilla tearing down cities.
Yoru wakes up and goes out. Genji's made pot stickers. They have not moved that body of the guy that she killed the previous day.
Also, almost 100% chance they didn't wash that pan either.
Probably not. No. We cut over to the park where Yoshida and Himeko are sitting together with Fami. And Yoshida says, like, look, Death Devil is descending in a month. Until then, we'd like your help on a few things on this list that we're giving you. Some of them are ridiculous requests, so you can refuse them if you want to, but we're understaffed and we're desperate at the moment. Fami looks at the list and says, I can't help you. Why not? Well, our school is having a festival to pray for Tokyo's revival on the same day as the Death Devil's descent, and I'm on the planning committee. And Fuko's like, what the hell? What about helping us? Humanity! Gonna die! What the hell? And Yoshida says, look, we could, like, send someone to cover for you on the school festival. And she says, no. Why not? Well, I've got friends in the committee, and it seems like fun. So Himeko's like, what the hell? That turned down the Death Devil will kill your friends too! What the hell? And Fami just stands up from the bench and says, look, I like to savor, to enjoy food, people, and experiences. When I was hanging out with Denji and Asa and Yoru, they were really fun because they looked confused all the time. But being around you guys, it's not fun.
Yeah.
That's just it. You bore me. I don't like you. And then her friends who are going to be on the committee with her show up. That girl is very tall. And she just goes over and is like, oh, Fami's hanging out with some devil hunters. Look, we're gonna do a planning meeting at karaoke, so we're gonna go now. Picks up Fami like a baby and carries her over her head as they run off.
And I like that Fami essentially just like dead bodies it. Like she's just completely motionless as she's held overhead. It's
we're doing this.
This is not the first time this girl has come up and taken Fami somewhere to do it like this.
And Yoshida, all he has to say is, I'm no fun, huh? That's all
I thought this was like the funniest part of the chapter is what's her name's being like, shouldn't we stop them? Yoshida's like, am I not fun? Like,
what the fuck? Come on!
He's like seemingly a little hurt to be told that he's not fun. He's like,
by this teenage devil.
Yo, the idea of like a teenage girl telling you you're not fun and him just being destroyed by it is like the best characterization Yoshida has ever gotten.
We go back over to Yoru and Denji. Yoru's just pointing her gun at dilapidated buildings and going bang to blow holes in them. And Denji's like, wow! Do that one next! Totally forgot about how dangerous she is, I guess. And so Yoru starts to go, alright, here we go! And then she slumps forward. And Asa points her finger at Denji. And Denji just says, what did I tell you, Pachita? I knew this was going to happen.
I mean, I'm super excited for next week.
Oh, yeah.
All I want is to see these characters get to talk. I've been like kind of upset that we haven't gotten to really see much from Asa in a while. But man, next chapter is gonna be absolutely wild.
This was a really fun chapter. I like the stuff that we get from these two idiots, and I like the stuff that we got from the other three idiots. Just a very entertaining chapter throughout. Very nice pace throughout it as well. As we continue to go towards that whole, confrontation with the end of the world thing.
Yeah.
And it's nobody's top priority except Yoru's, basically.
All right, Nick, call it now. what kind of girl do you think the Death Devil is going to be?
Oh man.
It'd be easy to go goth. It would be very easy to say goth girl.
I'm hoping for goth because shut up. But
I see another fellow Vice Admiral Doll appreciator out there. From One Piece.
No.
Okay.
She's not goth. She's a punk. Anyway.
Okay. So you're calling Austin Yorsky right now a poser?
I don't know
a goth girl poser.
She's not goth. She's punk.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like something very weird is going to be done with her. Because I mean, we've seen like what the war and the famine devils have been like, and they're not like what you would associate with those at all thus far. I feel like the Death Devil is going to be something like, serene and like perfect looking. Like she's going to be like the queen bee of the school, basically, kind of stereotype, as opposed to, Fami and Yoru look kind of like, the weird girls in class.
And I'm going to bet on Space Boy Cowboys, so that's my call. We're going to see which one of them.
Space Boy Cowboys. Okay.
All right.
Well, speaking of Space Boy Cowboys, Quinn, can you tell me about Dandadan now that we're back to it after a month off?
Absolutely, Nick. It's chapter 183, so it's you.
I don't like that.
Would it help if I did it in Sidcraft's voice? Nick.
Gah!
Yes, it's Dandadan chapter 183, so it's you. We start with Okarun, Kinta, and Aira running towards the school. Aira's like, what's the situation going on with Yukishiro? Kinta's like, I don't know. After she went into the gym, the video transmission from her hair ornament just cut out, and we don't really know. And Aira's like, all right, you two stay here, basically. And Okarun's like, oh, but it's too dangerous for you. And Kinta brings up, just kind of reminding the audience, it has been about a month. He's like, you can't use your powers, though, Okarun. So, like, it makes sense. So Aira's like, I'm going to go in first. Enters into the school. Next page, 2-page spread. Okarun and Kinta have been sent flying. Absolutely flying by something. In fact, so much so, Kinta says, if it weren't for his airbags, they'd have been screwed. So he imagined safety precautions and all of the little objects he uses his Megalon for, and I think that's very cute.
I think that shows a bizarre amount of planning and forward thinking. Because normally when you have like I make anything kind of weapon, you just focus on like the aesthetics of it. He's like, nope, we need airbags in this.
Yes.
All right. Good for you.
Fair enough. So we get 2 full-page spreads in a row as we see what our characters are into. Okarun and Kinta are facing down against the bully from the previous chapter and a mysterious, like, floating figure next to him. We know that he got powers.
Very much like his stand.
Yes.
Looking,
very much so. And then the second panel is Aira entering the school gymnasium, and there's, I don't know another word to use other than maybe legions of people already in there, but all of their heads are separated and are floating in the air. There is a scoreboard in this gymnasium that notes that this is a game that will go on infinitely, and the current score is 333-0. One of the heads has a whistle and blows it, and on that moment, a bunch of the bodies start leaping into the air, grabbing their own heads, and hurling them at Aira like missiles. They explode when they hit.
So insane.
It's very wild. I miss Dandadan. Aira dodges a lot of these attacks. She's very nimble and graceful, and she does her noble drill attack, and she drills through a couple of the bodies, but they instantly repair themselves, and she realizes, this must just be like Yukishiro. They are unbeatable unless I figure out who is controlling the power, basically. You have to defeat the enemy stand user before you can possibly stop this stand. So she's like, hey, by the way, where are Yukishiro and the class rep? They were supposed to be here already. And she looks into the crowd of heads, and there she sees Rin, her head floating with her little kappa just kind of floating next to it, crying.
Just going, no!
Yeah.
You can't be an idol if you're just a head! How will I put you in exposing outfits like this?
And that's the end of the chapter. It feels like it's a short chapter, but there are 3 full-page spreads in a row, or 2-page spreads in a row. So it does make sense why it goes by pretty quickly. But we very firmly establish here's where the 2 dramatic things are kind of going on right now, and it's exciting.
I'm very intrigued by the dodgeball-esque trial that Ira is confronted with and how you get around it. It's very interesting to me. Well, there's the guy. I don't know. I'm not really interested in the bully at all.
I'm a little interested, if only because I'm curious what they're going to do with Okarun not having powers here. Are they going to have him get new powers? Are they going to have him win without using powers? Like just the way he beat the bully with his own power, like his own natural abilities in a foot race. Is he going to beat them just with his own natural abilities here? It would make sense. They kind of did that stuff early on in the series. So I don't know. We shall see.
Maybe, Quinn, there will be a shooting star that he makes a wish on while holding a lighter. And then he could have powers like in Astro Royale, Chapter 42.
Right. Nick,
since long ago.
What powers would Okarun get? What would his Astro be if he wished upon a star? It is a lighter, of course. It's always lighters.
It depends, I feel like, on what stage of Okarun we're talking about. If it's modern, it would be different than if it were in Chapter 1.
What's modern?
In Chapter 1, it would be... Well, I mean, I feel like his priorities have changed now.
Sure.
It might be like, protecting his friends, being able to protect or be close or help or end up with Momo in some way. Probably something to do with her. But in Chapter 1, it would be meeting aliens, and he would have some sort of spaceship thing. So that it would be very different depending on what stage of the manga we're talking about.
And what would your Astro be? And your wish?
Maybe not reading Astro Royale anymore.
Whoa! Anyway. You see the wish, the star comes by, and you're like, I wish I didn't have to read this manga anymore. And then a big rock falls on you, and you're like, yeah, good.
We get a flashback for the perspective of Shikaba and Taira when they were little 7-year-olds, and they were poor, and they needed food and stuff. Anyway, that's all done. So Taira,
Nick,
who is,
we just had we just got to finally see the long-awaited Taira flashback. Do you care about these characters now?
They were poor.
I can, as someone who is also poor, I can relate to that. What else? Next page.
This is even worse than you showing no interest, is you asking a follow-up question. Like, opens up the magazine, there was just a single big chamber, and it's empty now. Oh, God. So, yeah, Taira says to Hibaru, whom he's fighting now, of course, like, have you ever shared food scraps with someone? And Hibaru says, what are you talking about? It's like, I didn't see that flashback. What are you talking about? All right, the little sister is still in trouble. She cries out for stupid guy, and Taira says, like, you either you die or the girl does, so give it up. And some people in the audience have takes on this. Okay. He attacks Hibaru again, who just covers up. And Taira says, I will become carnage itself for Shikaba. Okay. Then Terasu just goes over to where the Yakuza clan is and just turns his shield into a sword again and attacks the guy that is holding onto Tsukushi is her name. I
like that he summons his sword, but he doesn't cut him. He just kind of bonks him. In which case, why not just use the shield?
Oh man, it's a good thing that I got this edged weapon so I could hit him with the flat of it.
Thank God my second form is the reverse blade sword from Rurouni Kenshin instead of the shield that is full of sharp spikes for some reason.
So Terasu grabs Tsukushi and says, like, hey, Hibaru, I'll take care of things here. But then, coming out of the, I don't know, is another Nekosogi brother.
Do
Matsunosuke.
we know this guy? We just had like
I don't fucking know.
We had 7 fights in a row, and I don't remember this dude, but he's like related to the other dude who we see in this chapter, and I'm like, I feel like I should have seen this dude at some point, right?
He looks so much like Tyra, because like he's got the long braided hair and the multicolored hair and stuff. So anyway,
but he has the stupid chin tattoo that his other brother has.
Yeah, well, you know, maybe that's genetic. So
I'm already not a fan of the nose I was given by birth. I would be so furious if I had a fucking pronounced chin and neck tattoo for birth. Like, it's just a family curse.
Matsunosuke uses his Astro, which is, I don't know, vines, roots, whatever.
Well, you see Nick, during the meteor shower, he was holding on to his lighter, and he was like...
I love plants. I love plants now. Just playing with a lighter next to, like, 3 overgrown trees that were dry. And so, I love plants. Click, click.
The drier, the better.
So Tarasu gets grabbed, but he just says, Hiyohiko, take Tsukushi, because I guess Hiyohiko and Tarasu were from the beginning sitting really close to where the Yakuza Association was, because he must have moved like 30 feet before he got caught. He didn't get very far from there.
Yeah.
So Hiyohiko is now like, Tsukushi, get behind me. And he thinks to himself, I can't always rely on others. I gotta be like Hibaru, and bang! He gets punched by the gimp guy that was holding Tsukushi captive. So he's getting beaten up. Tarasu is being attacked by vines. Hibaru's got to deal with Tyra, but all he does is cover up, and so he's like, I can't take this much longer. And Tyra goes, do you really think that those two can handle that? No matter how fired up you are, you're still just kids. And Tarasu can never keep a cool head when it comes to you, Hibaru. You're all way too soft. You said like 3 different points in a row that had very little to do with each other, and you acted like it was all one singular point. Whatever. It looks like Hiyohiko?
Also, can I just note, this is annoying to me, and I shouldn't care. Tarasu's entire character makes 0 sense. Isn't the entire point is that he's the one with the cool head? Isn't that why his dad made him the leader of the clan, even though it was like unofficially it's Hibaru, but we need someone with a calm mind to lead us forward?
No, that's why Hibaru picked him, but yes.
I know, but it's just stupid.
Right. Anyway, so Tyra attacks, and he attacks, and he attacks, and then Hibaru suddenly goes, you were the same way! And he catches the suddenly very short and inflexible sword that was a whip under his arm, and he says, you've been soft for as long as I've known you. Nobody in this world can survive alone. You, me, everybody, we're all weak, but that's why we help each other out!
God, I hate this series so much.
And then Tyra has a little bit of a flashback to when he and Shikaba were sharing the scraps of food that they had, because they neither of them had enough, but they were sharing it with each other. And then Hachiku, the other brother with the multicolored hair and braid and stupid chin and neck tattoo, my god, he jumps in and he grabs Tsukushi and Hiyohiko, and he says, leave this to me, Hibaru, because I owe you one. I'll kick their asses. And he lands some black flames on the gimp guy and on Matsunosuke, and uses his black flame to go boom, and he blows them up. And then Hibaru's like, and I will punch. And he punches straight forward, and it sends Tyra flying to the opposite side of his body somehow, because physics.
No, Nick, it's because it was so cool. Like, he hit him, And he went flying. And the other guy also kind of did something similar. And Hachiku's gonna work with them, Nick. Like, we've been waiting for this alliance forever. Like, you know?
Like 3 chapters, maybe.
Maybe less. I don't remember when the other brother showed up. They might be the same character, so they may have interacted even earlier than this that I've forgotten. Who cares? The series is whatever. Embers, Nick.
Embers! Chapter 4, the first half. It's time for a strategy meeting, Quinn. Because you see, it's a 6-on-6 scrimmage where Takami and I'll remember his name. Haitani. There it is. I was really struggling because it's a weird name. So Takami and Haitani are both trying to make the team, but you know, they've got to do up against these higher ranked guys than them. So Glasses guy, one of the other newbies, says like, all right, we're gonna go with Takami and Yunazuka as forwards. I'll be the midfielder, and the rest of you guys be defenders. And I love that he's like, you know, sketching this out on a little, you know, like magnetic chips and stuff on a field, and Haitani's like, yes, okay. No idea what any of it means.
It's also funny to me because I'm like, I mean, would it not then be very unfortunate to be one of the defenders in the back, since the only condition to this contest is to score the most goals?
Well, the goal is to be scored the best. They haven't revealed how they're scoring them.
Oh, I thought they literally meant score the most goals.
This is not Blue Lock. It's okay.
There was like a moment I was like, why don't they all just play striker then if this is the fucking task? Right. This is a mess. You've created chaos and anarchy.
Inanaki is observing their meeting from a distance, and the others are like, are you gonna sit in on this? Whatever. And his teammate is apologetic and says like he's usually better up with A team, and one of the B team guys says like, we're just B team players. He thinks that he's too good to talk to us. So we begin the match between the team. Yuga Takami gets the ball early on to start with, but he is marked by 2 players. He dodges swiftly between them. He does a bit of a serpentine in order to dash through them. And he is, you know, told by like one of the more experienced guys, like, oh, I guess you're the middle scoring king for a reason, huh? And Takami says, I don't like that title. So he moves up. Haitani just thinking to himself, like, man, this sucks. I'm just like sitting back here and not doing anything. And then he calls up to Inanaki and says, like, why don't you go up and help them? And Inanaki's like, what's wrong with me just hanging out here? Let's just slack off together. So he says, but, you know, just watch. And Takami shoots the ball, but it goes like off the top post. And he's like, I don't have any shooting lanes right now. The defense here is just too good because he's being marked by 3 people at once. They're just not providing him a good lane. And so the defense strategy is sound here, essentially. So his other team is just like, well, just push up. And so Takami keeps on trying to go for it, but it goes off the post again. And when it rebounds, Haitani suddenly realized, like, huh, where did Inanaki go? And so as people are like, I've got to score a goal, suddenly Inanaki moves up and snatches the ball away from Takami before he can get the rebound. And he says, I let you have all those shots. You couldn't make a single one in. Like I thought, you're a nope. And he dashes around him with the ball. And he's like, this is the perfect opening because their right side defense is pushed up to be more aggressive. So there's a huge gap and they're wide open here. There's, you know, a perfect opportunity for me to score a goal because they don't play with keepers. It's just open net for this whole thing. But as he moves in, suddenly Haitani is there and he's got a freaking Hadoken charging in his hand, I guess. I don't know exactly what he's doing here, but he's lunging for Inanaki. Going right for him. He says, don't disappear like that. Give me the ball. And Inanaki goes very seriously, oh noes, run away. And he just knocks it back very quickly.
I love the adorable, like, quiet pass to somebody else. Run away.
So he passes it back to Kame guy, the bald guy. And that just lets the Inaki get away from Haitani because he's distracted. The ball's no longer on him, and he's like, you're the perfect prey because you're following the ball too closely. Dashes to a more optimal position. Kame guy passes him the ball, and he very easily just bop. The sound effect is bop. He bops it into the net. So his team's up 1-0. He and Kame guy do a little fist bump, and they're like, oh my god, the two of them are just like on a level above. They just completely, did it. We are told that Inanaki's off-the-ball movement is nuts. So that seems to be an indication of his specialty on the team. But on the other hand, Takami is getting criticized because he had like half a dozen shots on goal and he couldn't make one in. And he starts to have a flashback to when he let his team down. I mean, when he went for a shot and he didn't make it, and so his team lost by that one goal. And he thinks to himself, if I just keep on failing when it counts, and he tries to like push past it, he thinks I've just got to move past it. And Inanaki can sense that he's on the verge of breaking, and he thinks, give him a good long rope, and then yank him down. That's the quickest way to kill a player's confidence. And then I can just swallow him whole. All right, calm down.
It's not sexual, Nick, okay?
No. There's not going to be any homoeroticism in this shonen sports manga, Quinn. None of that ever happens.
All these boys have girlfriends. Every single one of them.
Girlfriends? These boys all have wives.
Yeah, they all have wives, children, and jobs. There will be absolutely no team frivolities that are not good old wholesome teamwork and soccer playing.
And giving each other a nice smack on the butt when they do well. Yeah.
In a platonic way with just a little bit of finger.
Just a little bit of a squeeze.
Just one squeeze. Two would be too much, but one lets them know that they appreciate you.
But Haitani suddenly speaks up, goes over to Takami, and is like, did you see that? He took one look at me and he ran the fuck away from me.
I kind of really like Haitani in this series because, like, Takami very easily just occupies the spot that you would expect, like, the shonen protagonist to occupy. But because he gets to be, like, the weird outsider, he just gets to show up at the end and be like, the dude's a fucking weirdo, let's beat him up.
And Takami's like, how dumb are you? He walled straight past you. And Haitani's like, who are you calling dumb? If it was me and him, that ball would have been mine. I would have had his ball.
I want these two idiots to just keep... I want them to come up with plans together for everything. Because I hope their first plan is, like, setting up, like, a mousetrap. Like, I hope they put, like, like cheese under a box with, like, a stick. And they're like, this is going to get him for sure.
So Takami's like, you know what? Hey, are you actually confident that you can take him one-on-one? And Ty's like, I just fucking said that. So he says, all right, I got an idea. And that's where we end things off. And I do appreciate that there is that unspoken moment of like Takami saying, this guy gave me trouble for an entire fucking game. I only barely managed to get past him at the end. So maybe he's right. And he can actually work this guy. Fun chapter.
Yes, very much so. Hima-Ten, Nick.
All right. So it's chapter 31 of Hima-Ten. Broody Himari. We're back to Hima-Ten. No more Hono-Ten.
No, that was a one-time thing for you little freaks out there. It's just hold on. Oh, okay.
You're probably right, but shut up.
Oh, okay. Shut your
Don't say true things.
Shut your pie hole. The girl I want to win can still win.
I don't even really want her to win. I'm just trying to be nice.
Right now, I like that you're polite to this imaginary girl's feelings. Right now, they were like, hey, next chapter's last chapter of Hima-Ten. Who do you want him to end up with?
recency bias in terms of what we've talked about, probably Kana.
Okay.
I've just really liked Kana recently, and we do get a bunch of Himari in this chapter, and there's some cuteness that happens, but it's kind of the same flavor of cuteness we've gotten from her before.
Fair.
Anywho, it's raining outside. That's very important. It will come into play later. So Himari and Kanai are hanging out, and as they're walking around, and Hima realizes, like, okay, I'm gonna be like working most of summer break, but I will still see Iemori when he comes over to clean my place. Mayu comes up, tromping up in big old rain boots and a raincoat. Love that energy. Just, nope, I'm not gonna go around under a tiny umbrella. Let me go through this storm. Quinn, there was a time when I was in college and I cared much less about my health. When it was raining outside after I got out of a class, and so there were a whole bunch of people at the entrance of the school building that I had to leave, and I was like, I gotta go to my bus. Just stomped out into the rain, let it just wash over me. I was like, going to the bus.
Look, I've also sometimes gone out in the rain, but I'm a little rain freak. I love a good rain. It's never done me any wrong. I've never gotten sick off the rain. So, try to stop me, okay? Were you gonna stop me from breathing next? Never. I guess someone could do that. I guess someone could choke me.
Okay, well, moving on.
Someone could choke me, Nick.
No, let's not talk about that.
No.
You seemed a little too... You had too much of an excited glint in your eyes when you said that, so we're going to move on now.
Someone could choke me.
No. Mayu just goes right up to Honoka and says, like, you asked Iemori to clean for you, right? Is he cooking for you too? And she's like, and this is the first time that Himari has actually heard about this. So we get a big old comedic expression from her. And so Honoka has to explain things. So Himari talks things over with her assistant, or I'm not sure exactly what her position is, but it's increasingly growing to be therapist, it seems, whenever she shows up. Because she's really upset, and she's like, "What's going on? You want to be like a little more professional in our meeting here, because you're not conducting yourself so well."
Yeah, well,
like,
she's.
I'm sorry.
Her legs are crossed. She's like pouting to the side.
So she's like, "Hey, can you be a bit more mature during your meeting?" And she's like, "I'm sorry." And so she says, "Did something happen to the boy you talked about after your school trip?" No. Something happened with my house cleaner, and I was thinking.
I think it's just very funny that this adult woman has to like kind of be responsible for this like 16-year-old high school girl who's she's like, "That's my CEO." But I also kind of have to ask her sometimes how her boy troubles are going. Like I kind of had to be a little bit of both for this poor kid.
There's a lot of those like Disney style shows where it's like, they're a teenager, but they're a boss, kind of thing. I want this kind of dynamic to show up more, where the adult has to address the teenager's issues for their boss.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's happened before, but I want it to be like a regular thing in a show at some point that way.
They're just like, so you made a deal to be at the big meeting, but also at the school dance at the same time.
Yes, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, you should cancel one of your plans.
Or you could get a wig, dress up as me, go to the dance. So like, why wouldn't you go to the dance? That's clearly the one you.
All right, do you want to be taken off of the Stein's heifer portfolio? All right, I guess I'm going wig shopping then.
Get a mohawk wig. Like, you don't have a mohawk. I'm going to though.
Oh. So the worker says like, hey, it's normal for house cleaners to work more than one client, right? And Himari says, yes, there is no issue, but I also still feel bad about it, and I don't know why. And I appreciate that she's like, it makes no sense for me to feel this way, but I do.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And, she's just still like, you're acting like a schoolgirl. It's very cute. All right, thank you, goodbye. So... However, she gets a message from Iemori after her meeting is done, while she's just kind of like brooding to herself. And Iemori says, hey, I ran into a bit of a problem. Is it okay if I'm late for the cleaning session today? And he shows up and his shirt is soaked on the bottom half. He's like, I got splashed when a truck drove by me. So you want me to just like go home, get changed, and come back? And because he doesn't want to bring the mess into her house. And Himari just sighs and says, you could just like take a shower and just wash your clothes here. And she says, I'm not going to send you soaking wet into the rain and then expect you to come back. Come on. So he agrees to that, and does his laundry and stuff. We get an Iemori showering scene, and well, I don't know. Something seems different than the times we've seen Kana and Himari bathing, but I can't put my finger on it. What it is. Himari is, however, self-conscious about the fact that the boy that she has a crush on crosses out line is associated with is showering in her home, which is she's like, what's wrong with me? So she goes off to make sure that he's got a change of clothes, and when the door to the bathroom opens, she's like, are you naked? And he's like, I had a change of clothes with me. I always have a change of clothes with me, because he is super prepared, especially for the summer, because he can get sweaty really easily.
Yes.
They make a note of the fact that he also like used her shampoo and stuff, because of course he didn't bring that with him. Himari says, you better not sniff yourself today because you're wearing my scent. Which he's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
No, I completely get her though. She's like, what the fuck? You're not supposed to know what I smell like.
So yeah, it's time for work at that point, because he's all cleaned up now, but Himari's still like self-conscious about everything, and she's like, she also found out when he didn't tell her about working for Honoka, and so she feels awkward about that. But Iemori's like, all right, well, I gotta go get ingredients to make dinner for you, but of course it's raining, and so she says, you don't have to do that, you could just like use what I've got at home. And Iemori says, no, because I don't like to overbuy anything. I've got leftover ingredients, I meal prep, or I take them home to use in your lunches. So she says, well, then maybe I could just like order delivery instead. And he says, no, it'll be fine. I'll just top up on some things. And I made a promise to your mom that I was going to make sure you ate proper good meals. Takeout's not going to do that. He's a very dutiful boy.
What do you mean? If you get a veggie pizza at fucking Papa John's, it's basically eating a salad. What do you like?
Yeah. It's only got half the preservatives as the full one, right?
Yeah, that's
right?
yeah. You can get a small. You shouldn't, but you could. I can't.
It'll feed maybe a mouse if you get the smallest portion that's healthy.
I remember ordering pizza for a group of friends, or one of our group of friends ordered a pizza, and the guy ordered medium pizza for some reason. And I remember just everyone gave him so
for
much.
A group?
Yeah, he got like 2 medium pizzas, and like when it showed up,
okay.
It was like, "Hey, bud, I would have thrown you the $4 you needed to make these large. Like, it's not that drastic."
If you're eating by yourself, maybe you want to get a medium pizza.
If I get a pizza for myself exclusively nowadays, I tend to get a medium just because otherwise it's too much. But like for a group of people, it's like,
yeah,
just do it. Almost everyone guys in that group as well.
Yeah, they've got to go eat half of a pizza by themselves.
Yeah.
So Himari says, all right, fine. If you want to go, then go. This is your job. And so Himari says, all right, do you want some specific dinner? You want me to surprise you? And then she just kind of gets very blushy and turns around and goes, I'll go with you and decide what we eat. Because I get to go with you because you work for me, right? And Himari says, sure. Why?
I guess that's the rule.
So he's like, why are you coming with me on a rainy day? No reason. They take a taxi because Himari's paying for it, get to the market, and she's kind of half in her disguise because she's got her hair down and she's got her glasses on, but she is just in like her school uniform. And so they're walking around and everything. Iemori reflects on the fact that they haven't gone out this way, just the two of them, since their first shopping trip together. So it's been quite a while. And then he asks, like, hey, what do you want for dinner? And she says, "Oh, I'll leave it up to you." And then he says, why'd you come then? Because it seemed like the reason was that she was going to pick it out. And she says, "I'm doing it to see how you're doing your job." And there's a sound effect, Hima. And so...
Doesn't she also Hima halt as well?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I need to start getting fucking verbs named after me. I'm gonna Quinn dance and Quinn talk. Quinn sneeze. I think that's a good one. Quinn snooze. That's a good one.
I actually like Quinn snooze. That's pretty good. So he kind of like goes over like, here's how I determine how fresh the ingredients are with her for a little bit. But as he does so, Himari starts thinking to himself like, why am I here? I mean, kind of got to know Iyamura's family, and I didn't even get to say hi to them. That's why. But I can't just tell him that that's why. I can't tell him that I just wanted to spend some time with him. Aww. The rain lets up a little bit, so they decide, okay, we can walk now. And Iyamura says, "I brought an umbrella. Do you want to like go back and buy one for yourself from the store here?" And Himari says, "Nah, it's too much work. Let me get that umbrella." And Iyamura says like, "Oh, do you want me to go buy you one?" And Himari's like, "Nope." Opens up the umbrella, puts it over both of them, and she says, "Yeah, this is fine." And Iyamura says, "I mean, maybe I should hold the umbrella because he's taller, of course." And she says, "No. Your job is carrying the bags. I'll hold the umbrella." Get him. Go for it.
Very fair as well. Like, yeah, you know what? Fuck that. I don't want to carry those bags. Those look heavy.
Yeah. So they start walking down the street, and then eventually she says, "How did cleaning Hanoka's place go?" And she says, "Yeah, I just kind of overheard Hanoka and Mayu talking about. Just, like, go dives through the awkwardness really quickly." And he says, like, "Look, I just kind of, like, did it how I would do anyone else's, and yeah, she's kind of like referred me to a summer course." And Himari's like, "All right, yeah, well, good for you." But she gets a little bit sad, and then she says, "Hey, so let's say on one of your cleaning days this summer, if I said I wanted to go to that," and she points out a summer fireworks festival poster, "what would you say to that?" And, because, like, I'm going to be working the whole time, but I think I would want to go to that. And Iyamura says, "I guess I wouldn't mind." And she just looks at him, and she's got, like, the purest, wondrous expression. She says, "You mean it?" And he's like, "Yeah." Then he feels quite, like, self-conscious because, this pretty girl his age just looked at him that way. He's like, "Oh." And she says, "I just took a shower. It's getting kind of hot here." And so Himari says, "Is that what you meant when you said that you need to keep clean, like not sweat and stuff?" But then she leans in and she pulls back and says, "You smell the same as I do, so I think you're probably fine." Himari, you need to come to grips with something. You're leaning over to smell this man while you're walking down the road. I think that you might need to admit something.
No, who knows? This could be anything, Nick.
That's the chapter.
Yeah, it's a cute little chapter of Hima-Ten. I enjoy getting to see Himari. I enjoy seeing her use this circumstance she finds herself in a weird way to, like, get a connection with this guy. Like, I like her being like, as your employer, I can go along with you on your trips, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm allowed to do that, right?
Yeah. And it's like such a very funny way for her to justify, like, can I come to the store with you? Not like I have any feelings. It's very adorable. But, I guess we shall see where we go from here. I hope Himari can get, like, a win sometime. Feels like she's been watching all of her rivals catch wins recently, so I'd like this fireworks festival to go off pretty well for
her. To go off like fireworks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Star of Beethoven, Chapter 3, Reiro Academy. We get the strangest opening page this week, bar none.
I think
which is
Harul in our Discord noted this is a thing I guess Beethoven actually did. Is he counted out 60 beans every morning?
60 beans.
Yeah.
For coffee. It's just 60 coffee beans. Then each of them is numbered 1 through 60. That's the first page of this chapter. And when he's done, he goes, "Sehr gut! And behold, also, precisely 60 beans, the exact right amount for brewing coffee, and I brewed one for you as well. Drink it." And Yas is like, "All right, thank you." He says it tastes weak. Aww. Well, he thinks it tastes weak. He announces to Beethoven that he's going to transfer into Reiro Academy, and Beethoven says, "Oh, I don't know what that means, but fine."
Sounds good.
All right. He says, "I will guard your domicile while you take care of that." Yas is like, "No, you're coming with me. I told you could stay one night. You can't just stay here alone." And Beethoven says, "You do not trust the integrity of Ludwig van Beethoven?" "I don't trust that you are Ludwig van Beethoven." Yeah. I hope he's gotten to shower.
Beethoven?
Yeah. That would have been an experience for him, wouldn't it?
I mean, yeah, God, there would be a lot of things. He's like, brushing your teeth?
But I have already done so this week. So they get to the academy. Beethoven's very excited because it is a conservatory of music. He also says that the plan is to transfer in, but the problem is that it's a top performing academy here. And so there's the issue of like whether or not he'll be approved to, transfer in. Beethoven hears a piece being played in the concert hall, and he recognizes it as Mozart's, and he's like, "Oh, I loved his music when I was a lad. Alas, he passed as I was starting to come into my own." And he also says, "Yeah, right." And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, that's not the strangest thing that he has said about, like, "I am Beethoven from hundreds of years ago," but whatever. He just goes into the concert hall, he's like, "Who's performing?" And there is an orchestra recital that's going on. And as they head in, a couple of the people in the audience, not the audience, in the orchestra, happen to spot Yasso and recognize him. And so he's like, I gotta get out of here. So he goes to deal with the dean of admissions. But as he's like talking to himself about stuff like, "I gotta go deal with this. Hey, thanks for inspiring me to play the piano again. But I think that I gotta like say goodbye to you at this point." Turns, and Beethoven's gone. And but like he's just like going off and exploring this place, and so he intrudes on another performance of Stravinsky's The Firebird, and he's like, "Who composed this? You tell me who has done this." And Quinn, the series is titled Star of Beethoven, and we keep on cutting away from Beethoven doing these things. And it feels like something has been done here that feels wrong. That keeps happening.
I think the fundamental mistake is that jacked alive again Beethoven should have been the main character of this manga. I don't know why there's this kid. He's very superfluous. This should just be about jacked Beethoven being like, "I shall be going to your schools again." Like, "Try to stop me. I am Beethoven."
"You're not allowed to be here," says who? Well,
Dandadan.
Oh, well, okay. He's just playing. "I am Beethoven. Your argument is invalid." Yasso goes to meet with the admissions guy, Takasugi, who scolds him for being 4 minutes late. And then we cut over to the girls that were in the previous chapter, who have gotten word on social media that there is a, quote, weirdo roaming the school. Good for you, Beethoven. But they also say, like, "Oh, and Yasso was on campus for some reason," and Oka, the blonde girl, is like, "What? Yasso? Where?" Because I guess she's very invested in him, I guess. So Takasugi says to Reiro's like, not to Reiro, to Yasso, "I know that you were in Reiro's middle school. You had a distinguished record, so we can skip a lot of the portions of this But then he pauses and eventually says, "Hey, are you sure you actually want to transfer?" And Yasuo says, "Well, what do you mean?" And he says, "Look, I know a lot of students. I know a lot of students that were ruined by their talent. I know ones whose talents dried up. They were trapped in the gulf between who they are and who they aspire to be, driven to mental illness. Ones who realize too late that their talent isn't special." And so he says, "I feel like you lack achievements in the 2 years that you haven't been playing, and I doubt whether you're going to recover to the level you aspire to." And Yasuo says, "That's not really something for you to decide." And Takasugi says, "That's true, but I am going to be the one who's testing you. So if your performance is unsatisfactory, I can reject your transfer application." Fair enough. And he's like, "Look, I'm not doing this to be a bully. I just think that, it would suck more for you if you got in and you weren't actually ready for this." So that is what he is here to determine. So he says that you can always just continue playing as a hobby, but what do you expect to accomplish at this point? And Yasuo hesitates to answer until, "Yay, Beethoven! Yay!" Applause comes when he comes back to the room. We've already seen him in this episode, but the audience is still happy that he's here.
Oh, they're losing it
for the first time.
Kramer got multiple standing ovations sometimes.
Beethoven comes in and says, "What the hell are you doing?" And he says, "Who is the dreary fellow in glasses? A pianist? I should think not." He will not play the piano.
With your tiny, scrawny fingers, you need jacked fingers to play the piano.
Let me show you. Guy who wants to be, was his name Crow from One Piece? Wasn't that his name? The glasses guy with the...
Kuro.
Kuro. He really desperately wants to be him, and so he says, "Who are you? You're not allowed in school grounds." And Beethoven starts saying stuff in German. He's like, "Mr. Yasuo, I don't speak German. What is he saying?"
I do like these. What is this dude saying? Now, Nick, do you want to try to say his little thing?
"Schweinhund, wer bist du, dass du mit mir sprichst?"
There you go. Sounded good.
You guys can judge me accordingly on that.
Well,
I gave my sincerest best effort.
None of our German listeners will be able to correct you on that. Their mouths are all currently full of other human beings that they're devouring, so they can't obviously get to the mics or the keyboard right now. Yeah, they got to use their hands to push those kicking feet down.
God. So Beethoven says that it's really exciting because he's just like, "There's been so much great music the past 2 centuries. How'd your application go? What did this glasses man say?" And then he says, "Oh, it doesn't even matter what he says. To those who stand at the brink of genius, the experience and opinions of the talentless are of little value. A bona fide genius can only be satisfied for so long before there comes a time when he must again progress. Hence, for you and I, the road ahead is everything. We belong only to the eternal heavens. If you wish to learn, then I shall teach you what true genius is." And he sits down at the piano that Yasuo was supposed to play at. And Yasuo's like, "Oh, holy shit. He's going to play a full symphony piece from this guy." And he doesn't necessarily believe that Beethoven is who he claims he is, but he's like, "This guy's really good at the piano. I want to hear it." And so he sits down very attentively. And Takasugi says, "Look, my lunch break is over in 10 minutes. I gotta go."
I like the dude who's just like, "I gotta get going in a couple minutes." So.
And so he says, "Look, I'm going to notify security of your presence here, so you should both leave before you're dragged out." Beethoven sits down to play a 23-minute piece.
All right, Nick, we have reached
the moment of truth.
The end of our first 3 chapters of Star of Beethoven. Will we be Beethovening the rest of this star?
I'm kind of in 2 minds about it because I do like Beethoven just being weird all over this but it feels like the core of what's actually happening, the actual story, is not very interesting to me at this time. So that's my two conflicting emotions on it.
Cool. No. All right. Sid Craft, Love is a Mystery, Case 13. I just did not care about the Beethoven manga. So unless you were like fervently like, I have to read more, I'm like,
I was on the fence, and I was like, I was gonna fight you either way. So.
Every week for the past 3 weeks, I keep looking at my fuck. I forgot there's another fucking series, and I had to read it, and I'm like, why? Like, Jacked Beethoven is in this manga, and he shows up and does so little in it. Sid Craft, Love is a Mystery, Case 13. The great detective yields to the red-lipped peach blossom. So we open. Inspector Souffle Fanberry is there with Sid Craft, and they are discussing...
Inspector Souffle Flamberry!
Yes. They are discussing the Zero-Craft case and the fact that the police don't have any clues on it yet. They have interrogated Scissorlegs and the other two people from the boat, but none of them know what Zero-Craft looks like. So Sid is like, all right, well, it looks like we'll have to keep investigating the hard way. But then Souffle burns her tongue on her hot tea, and she starts blowing on it.
In the most provocative manner possible.
Nick,
apparently.
What do you mean? Do you not...
Oh, I gotta hold my coffee in both hands to blow on it. Oh.
My tea's so hot.
The single least sexy noise.
She just puts...
Like, you go through the whole expression and you're like, poof!
You're like,
blowing on it like a jug band.
She is apologizing. She says, I may not look like it, but I'm sensitive to hot drinks, and I have to really
What does that even mean?
Look, Nick, this is like in the 1500s or some shit. Back then, this was one of the most interesting things you could say about yourself. I don't know what to tell you, Nick. She says it about herself. She's like, I know you normally discern a person whether or not they blow on their tea based on their first an immediate look upon them. But I am one of those people that defy that spectrum. I actually look like I'd be fine, but I really have to blow on my drinks. But she notices, she's like, hey, Sid Craft, you've been looking away from me the whole time. What's up with that? It's like, oh, you must be imagining things. And she's like, oh.
I'm not thinking of anything weird.
And he's like, oh, this is bad. Whenever I look at her, I think about that day. And everything she says goes in one ear and out the next. Oh, kiss. So Detective Flumberry sits next to him, and he's like, oh no, why did she move next to me? And she's like, okay, if that's the case, then me sitting next to you will make talking easier. Anyways, there's a case that happened here, and he's like, oh no, it's too close, you're making me remember that kiss. But as he's saying it, he's like, actually, maybe this is very normal, because Inspector Flamberry doesn't seem to be worried about what we're doing at all. She actually seems
Maybe I should take a cue from her and stop being a weirdo.
Yeah, she seems actually extremely adult and comfortable with all of this. So she's going on to explain how there was a victim, about this height, etc., etc. She starts going through all the details. And Sid's main thought is, the topic of the discussion here is amazingly unsexy. Which, yeah, I guess he's right. Sid's all out of tea, so he asks for a refill, and the waitress comes and gets it, and it's like, yeah, absolutely, sir. And as they're like walking away, Sid's still being very nervous, and we are introduced to our waitress, Misery Kilthee, also known as the self-proclaimed Mad Hell Misery, the woman who strives to be a criminal for the ages.
And she's already got such a good name to thought up.
Mad Hell Misery. Just the name Misery alone is such a great name for a character.
Yeah, look down on that, because that's her real name. So.
Exactly. Her Christian name was Misery. They baptized that. She thinks, the great detective Sid Craft, You are worthy of being my first target. I'll take you out and I'll prove to everybody I'm a cut above any criminal you've caught so far. But her boss is like, oh, Misery, would you mind taking this out to table 2? And she's like, sure thing, manager, okay. And she's like, oh, you've been so good today. You've been working so hard. It's so good to have you here. She's like, oh, really? Thank you. And she's like walking away and she's like, I was praised today. And then she's like, no, I can't get giddy. I have to be a big-time criminal. She goes back into the back room and she's like, I almost got so caught up in things I stopped working on my plans. I started just doing my job. She
just started working as she was just like, I had waitress work to do. I had to do it.
Yeah. But she's like, all right, Sid Kraft, I have nothing against you, but this fast-acting poison will send you straight to the pearly gates without a lick of pain. But I'd feel bad if he got kind of poisoned out of nowhere. It'd feel like a shock.
Maybe got bad.
All right, well, how about this? And she serves out a drink. And Sid looks at it, he's like, oh, is this? And he takes a sip. He's like, it's so sweet. You put hot cocoa loaded with chocolate. And Misery starts laughing to herself. She's like, a long time ago, my mother told me that if I ate too much chocolate, I'll get a nosebleed. Well, Sid Kraft, enjoy your one-way ticket to hell, courtesy of the giant nosebleed you're about to get. Although, as she walks away, she's like, though sugar and chocolate are in short supply, so I only put in a moderately large amount.
She did her murder plot responsibly for the good of the restaurant.
And we just see a little thing at the bottom that says, Misery Kilty was inherently a good girl.
All right, now don't do that again. Stop doing that. You get one.
Okay.
You get one. Stop captioning them now.
So, Sid Kraft sits there and is like, oh, that server. And then he's like, did she give me that hot chocolate to help me calm down now? How kind of her. Thank you, Miss Server. Now that you've helped give me some composure, I can go back to thinking about things. And Flomberry is like, oh, wow, that looks really good. I'd love a sip. Sid Kraft's like, oh, that's no issue. Let me just get another cup. She's like, oh, don't worry about that. She just takes the cup, takes a sip, and she's like, yep, that is really delicious. And Sid goes, oh, it's an indirect kiss. So he starts thinking about the kiss again, and Misery's like, yes, my plan is working, and now I must capitalize on this.
I love that in the background, Souffle is just going, one more sip.
Yeah, she's just like, a little bit more. So she brings out an enormous tray of sweets, and she's like, compliments of the house. I call this Operation Gutbuster. Enjoy your trip to the afterlife from the sugar spike induced by your pig-out session. Although, I didn't want to trouble the cafe, so I paid for this myself. And then it notes again, she's a good girl.
It's ruined.
Okay.
Did it. Can't do it twice.
The manager comes up and is like, you shouldn't do that. You're using all of the ingredients we have right now. Souffle is like, hey, owner, this is really, really good. Do you run this place by yourselves? And the manager's like, oh, well,
Souffle's eating all of it immediately. Yeah, it's just all gone.
Everything's gone. The manager's like, oh, actually, she just started today. I usually handle things by myself. And we get an astounding egad from Souffle. And Sid Kraft goes into one of the most confusing nerdy things because Souffle ate so many sweets and treats, her lips are all greasy from eating, so she's...
Stop looking at her fucking lips, you fucking weirdo.
It is extreme. I'm like, now you're... Like, I can understand if she really was sitting there making, like, sexy noises the whole time or something like that.
Or even the indirect kiss, because she did just do that. Stop looking at her mouth.
It's one of these things I'm like, she's just a woman existing in this world. You don't need to be so focused on everything her lips are doing.
When she was dressed so sexy in that overcoat and full suit.
I mean, yeah. So she's like, oh, I'm not sure how, but it's working. So Misery's like, I just have to put the finishing touch on all this. And she starts sweeping the floor super well. And she says, I call this Operation Slippery Floor Flat on Face. Say your prayers, Detective Sid. But their plans have just made the floor so perfectly clean that they're sparkly and everyone in the restaurant's commenting on how sparkly it is. the manager's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so, sorry to work you so hard. And she's like, it's okay. I'm sure Sid is. And then she turns and Sid is standing right behind her. He's like, I've thought something has been very strange around here. And she's like, no, what happened to the down and out attitude? He's supposed to be panicking. Why is he suddenly calm and cool and in charge? And he's like, yes.
What's the chocolate?
She's like, thank you for cleaning the floors because it's so fucking shiny right now. I can't even see Detective Flomberry's face and I can't be distracted by her lips right now. So
weirdo.
He goes on his whole thing. He's like, from the start, there's been something very strange about this establishment. He's like, my cover's blown. My ambitions to be a big-time criminal dashed. But Sid is like, you were the culprit all along, weren't you, Mr. Manager? Or should I say, Mr. On-the-Run Slasher with a deadly weapon. And he basically goes on to explain that this guy is very, very short, and it's very, very clear that this is not his restaurant because there's ingredients on the top shelves that he doesn't even realize about. It's not that interesting of a mystery. This guy goes to, cuts, to shank Sid, and Detective Flomberry just walks in and, fucking hook kicks this dude.
Kick!
He's dead. This dude's dead. I don't know what to tell you. He took a hook shot straight to the chin. He's just fucking gone.
Yeah, his face explodes in blood.
Yeah.
And good for you, Souffle.
Yes. We cut to the outside of the restaurant, and Souffle has had the situation explained to her. She's like, are you still bothered by that little mouth-to-mouth moment? Come on, this is silly. It doesn't matter. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Just my mind was so stressed about it. And she's like, why? All they did was do the thing I needed to do to save someone's life. And Sid's like, yeah, you know what? I guess that makes sense. But then he notices that Flomberry's ears are a little red, and he doesn't maybe know, but we can see that she's blushing. And she says, I've been trying to forget about it too, so stop making you remember it, you idiot. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, she was worried.
It's cute.
We end the chapter with Mad Hell Misery sitting outside, and she's being like, real murders are scary, but I'm gonna get you yet, Detective Sid Craft. And the mom and the child from We Never Learn, Susui's greatest comedic device, is walking by, and the kid just goes, mommy, and the mom's like, don't even, I don't know, this is some insane woman on the street, I guess.
Quinn, what do you think of Misery, Kilthy?
I believe I was put on this earth to appreciate this character, Nick. I believe that I was born in this world with eyes so that I could look upon her. I was born with a brain so that I could think about her. I truly, there's not a more precious character in this world in my mind.
I wouldn't go quite that far, but I do love Mad Hell Misery. I think she's so great. I think that the joke of her character is just really silly, but the extent to which it's gone to multiple times in this chapter, it's so ludicrously insane. That she thinks I'll poison him by giving him a little bit of chocolate. It's so silly.
I lost my shit when she's like, enjoy your one-trip ticket to hell after you have that massive nosebleed, Sid Craft. And then as she's walking away, she's like, but sugar and chocolate are in short supply, so I just put in a moderate amount.
Yeah, I love her, and look forward to hopefully sporadic appearances from her. Don't overexpose this character.
Yeah,
I don't want to be tired of that joke.
And she is inherently a good girl, and I love that about her. Ninja, you could just put Mad Cat Misery in for my character of the week now. I'm going to save you the time.
Mad Kill Misery.
Mad
Hell Misery?
I thought it was Mad Hell Misery.
I think it's Mad Hell Misery. Yeah. Chapter 33 of Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, Fight Nehan and JJ! And we get a color page of Kiyoshi with Jack-Cho and Nehan behind him, and a mysterious new character, Quinn. Who could they be? Nehan and Jack-Cho have showed up in a combined form, and Akari says, is it Nehan and Jack-Cho? And we get a flashback to, of course, the two of them going to Tsurugi, asking to be trained so that they can fight. Tsurugi immediately saying, no, you guys are with Sakaki's unit. He should teach you. If you won't, then give up. And also, why are you asking me? I tried to exorcise you. But both of them say, that's why. It's because we thought you would agree because you have seen Jack Joe's powers firsthand. And Jack Joe's like, yeah, remember how strong I was? And he also even says, look, if I lose control, you can exercise me. Tsurugi is amused by this. And he says, after you tried so desperately to cling to life, and you consent to this? And Nehan looks kind of down as Tsurugi says, it is suicidal for a simple high schooler to stand against the Black Parade. But Nehan says, it's what I want. Kiyoshi saved a life that should have been taken by you once already, and the two of us owe him everything for that. He's our friend, and we want to help him. So, Tsurugi says, all right, if you lose control, I'm going to exercise you. Deal. Jack Joe, enter Nehan Sanzugawa's shadow. Do it now. And so Jack Joe kind of like awkwardly steps into the shadow and sinks into it, which of course takes Nehan by surprise. And Tsurugi says, the art of exorcist employment is simple enough. The familiar enters the exorcist's shadow. The shape of their combat style is naturally determined. And Jack Joe's hood emerges from the shadow. His shadow coils around Nehan's body. And then the hood goes on top of his head. And Tsurugi knows to himself that a contracted demon can only unleash its full power through the human it's contracted to. There's no way to avoid this kid having to fight. He at least seems ready to do what he'll have to do. And he says, like, yeah, if you familiarize yourself with the abilities that you now have, then you might be able to put up something of a fight by the time the Black Parade happens. And he thinks to himself, Nehan Sanzugawa really is just a high schooler, and yet this power! And in this form, there's, of course, a big aura of power that Tsurugi can sense around Nehan and Jack Joe. So he says, you know what? I'll spar with you a little. I've changed my mind. Cut to the present. Akari is saying, what are you guys doing here? It's dangerous. And Nehan/Jack Joe turns and goes, I think you're confused. Nehan, Jack Joe, who are they? Just very... You're wearing... I know your face is hidden, Nehan, but you're wearing Jack Joe's face over your face, so I don't think it works very well. They, of course, had rushed in to deal with Baku Yuraku, who now emerges from the rubble and says, like, to be meeting you again. It might have been 10 years ago, but it still feels just like yesterday to think you're here on the surface. I've missed you, Jack Joe, my old friend and rival. And, of course, they're both like, oh, you've lost your memories. How annoying. Got over that real quick. Starts attacking. And he says, like, I've devoted myself to training so that I might surpass you, and you've just forgotten about me. You're just a human's lapdog. This is inexcusable. So he launches a attack from, like, the butt of his pitchfork, which knocks Nehan Jack Joe back. He tries to fight back with a shadow claw thing, but it just gets punctured on the pitchfork. And then his own spear thing gets dodged. And Bakuraku says, I would never call this a duel. It is simply a beating. The weakness is nothing like the old you. But Nehan Jack Joe manages to get away somehow? I don't know. He dodges away.
He does.
And Jack Joe says, I'm not interested in the old me. What matters is the current me. The one who works part-time at the gates of hell and is Nehan and Kiyoshi's friend. Aw, big ol' softy. So he says the only power that he needs is the power to protect everyone. And so Bakuraku gets really pissed off, starts twirling his pitchfork around, and stabs him a whole bunch of times. But Nehan and Jack Joe flash back to some of their training. After getting a bit of a beating from Tsurugi, they learn that they're the first ones that he is ever allowed to escape an exorcist. He says that dealt quite a blow to my pride, but perhaps it was simply fate. And he says that's why he taught them how to fight, because of the courage that they showed in coming to him. So he says, the two of you better not die. So Nihon Jackjo gets back up, uses their shadowy claws to grab onto Bakayuraku's horns, and I thought for a second they were like gonna snap him off, but that doesn't happen. Just holds him in place in order for Nihon Jackjo to rush in and stab them with their spear together. As we get, of course, an explanation from Tsurugi that the power of Exorcist employment stems from the strength of the demon and the Exorcist skill, but the most important thing is their bond. Hooray!
Hooray! It's fine. It's, you know.
It's about what you would expect.
It's about what I expect. I'm also just, like, still, I don't know. I'm trying to, like, find my route to, like, get back into this series with, and I just kind of haven't found it yet. Like, ever since it seemed, like, super obvious it was getting canceled, and now it's, like, seemingly not. I just kind of wait to, like, I feel like I'm still reading a series that's ending, even though I don't think it is anymore. But who knows? You know, it's fine. If you know, we got our Nihon Jackjo payoff, and that's cool.
Yeah. So there's been a shocking revelation, Quinn. Why don't you talk to us about it with Marriagetoxin?
Yes, this is big news, Nick. Marriagetoxin, chapter 118. We have, oh my gosh, I forgot his name. Kaito, or no. Fuck, what is it?
Look at me. I don't know his name.
I know it's very close to Kurito, but I don't. It is just Kurito. I think it's just Kurito.
It might be Kurita.
Kurita. Sword guy is like, this is big news to me, a shocking revelation. He's writing down all of Nabe's teachings, and he's got to like kind of fill everything in. And we see, oh gosh, I'm blanking on everyone's names. Cross-dress person who is helping Gakuro. Kinosaki. I don't know why I'm blanking on everyone's names right now.
It's also not Gakuro, it's Hikaru Gero.
Nick, why don't you discuss this chapter?
All right, here we go!
I suddenly got hit with like a crazy wave of like exhaustion, and like every name was suddenly just a blur in my brain.
Gaku is the luggage bearer in the past that Nabe fell in love with.
Why don't we talk about New Exorcist?
Okay, so New Exorcist, dude, are you serious?
No, you can perfectly. You can go through. I'm just in my mind. I'm like, clearly my brain wanted to talk about Gakuro and New Exorcist.
All right, so in the past, and if we go back to the flashback, actually it's a different flashback because Nabe visits Gaku in his village where he's helping rebuild because it was his village was messed up by the wind god. And so Nabe says, like, I was wondering how your rebuilding efforts were going. And so he says, okay, I'll show you around. And so he's, pleased to see her and does that. And Nabe's just thinking, like, just thank him. Thank him for saving you. Come on. Can't get herself to do it, though. And as he's being nice to her, she's being really sharp and harsh with him again. And she's like, why am I doing this? And, she's resorting to her old ways around him. He also leads her to, a stone that kind of serves as a marker, like a grave marker for his younger brother and many other victims. He prays, and Nabe joins him in prayer. But then she stands up and starts to say something, but there's a big gust of wind. And when he turns to look at her, Nabe has got her sword out. She says, let's just fight until we're soaked in blood to the death. And she's got this big, excited, demented look on her face. And she says, and in the present, I went to see him quite often, up to 5 times a week. It seems like a lot to do in order to just go and fight this guy instead of, ask him out. But she says that she also grew stronger because she was doing that. And then Kinosaki and the president is like, you should have been hugging and kissing at that point. And they get this really gushy look on their face because he kind of settles down and like it squishes his expression up. It's very funny. But Gero is very impressed by this because that means that this man was undefeated by the former head of the Arima family. So he wonders if that means that this guy was a mutant of some kind. But Kinosaki is really excited to see, like, hey, did this ever have like a happy romantic ending or anything like that? And she says that If those days had gone on and on, perhaps that might have been the natural development. It gets to a point where she, is like going to strike him, and he manages to counter it and thrust her into the ground. But he's also going, "I'm sorry," while doing it. And then afterwards, there's kind of like an awkward bit after, and Abe says, "I guess I couldn't kill you to the end." And Gaku, turns to start to encourage her, says, "Oh, well, next time." And she says, "There is no next time. I'm getting married." And she says, "Yeah, he's he's a strong, kind, handsome man. He can skillfully handle anything with ease. Very much unlike somebody else I know. So long." And Gaku calls after her and says, "Even after you get married, please feel free to come here and kill me anytime." And Nabe gets really upset. She turns, she's got tears in her eyes, and she says, "I told you, we're never going to see each other again." And Gaku has this very sincere and determined look on his face, and he says, "I'll still be waiting. I'll keep waiting for the day when you'll come to take my life." Which might be the most romantic thing that has been said in this entire series thus far. That is... Obviously, it's like messed up with all like assassins and everything, but it's like that's so. God, that's good.
Yeah.
I'll wait for you to come and kill me forever. Kinosaki is in tears in the present, and they turn to look at Garo, and it's like, it's so bittersweet, right? And Garo's like, "I don't understand any of this." Chinatsu approaches Nabe and says, "But you didn't get to spend your life with Gaku. Do you regret that choice?" And Nabe considers this, and she says, "I was unable to be honest about my own feelings. So I got married, I gave birth, I continued tempering myself. Only while spending my days in the front lines as the family head did I finally realize that what I felt back then was love. So, forgive me for troubling all of you with this, but that is why I want the final person I kill to be Gaku." And Kinosaki brings up, when did the Wind God thing happen? 70 years ago. So Kinosaki brings up, like, I mean, if Gaku was in his 20s, I mean, it's possible he's already... And Nabe starts laughing. And she says, "There is no way that somebody stronger than me would croak before I do." And the image of her turns into the young Nabe. Mm-hmm. And she says, "That man's life will be mine to take." Feels like that could have been the ending of the chapter. That's a really cool moment to end on. But
I like where it ends ultimately, as we'll get to in a second. But yeah, that could have been just like the finale.
Yeah, it's a good moment. And then we get this guy whose name we can't remember. He's on the phone talking with the mustache man from the steel, the Iron Clan. Iron Clan? Yes. Iron, yes. And so he's like practicing as well while he's on the phone, and she says, if she had just said that she had this regret that she wanted to settle, then we could have offered her our support. But
Kirito,
okay. But she also admits, like, that's like the nature of our family, though. I think that she left to avoid having anyone try and do this for her, basically. And Kirito says to Morito, who is, of course he's eating, because that's what this man enjoys most in life, it seems. He says, "If I'm allowed to, I would like to respect her wishes, so let me take on the duty of being her watcher for this undertaking." And Morito says, "Well, I don't think I should have anything to worry about if you're around, but should she break the boundary of dream and reality, you are to immediately cancel all your plans and call for emergency backup. The only ones who can stop her if that happens are likely only the family head, Yasuto, and me." And at this moment, just to let us know, like, hey, this Morito guy, he's been real silly, hasn't he? He's standing on top of the largest bear in the world that he has killed and is just casually eating a bento on top of. So Kirito agrees to that.
Now, you said that with authority, Nick. How do we know that's the largest bear in the world?
It's the largest bear I've ever seen, Quinn.
There could be bigger bears. What about the Bear Clan?
There's always a bigger bear.
Yeah, it's always the bigger bear.
Gero comes out to talk to Kirito, and is kind of honest to him. Is like, I was kind of instructed to wait and see how things go. Avoid some of the details, of course. But he says to Gero, you don't really live up to your name. Just really starts talking shit to him. But of course, secretly, he's thinking to himself, this guy very much exceeded my expectations when I fought him. He may very well be a worthy rival, capable of tempering the iron blade that I am, which is why I cannot let you stagnate. So he's trying to push him. Mm-hmm. And he says, if I can offer you a piece of advice, that protector, Akakura-san, you're better off staying away from her. She will only dull and rust your skills. And at that moment, Chinatsu is watching over Nabe, who suddenly wakes up and realizes that Chinatsu is crying and asks what has happened. I don't like Chinatsu being sad, Quinn. I don't like it. She's upset, and she thinks lowly of herself, and I don't like that.
I think, the reason I think I like it is it looks like this arc is going to deal with sort of strength in relationships. Maybe not necessarily like a ubiquitous topic for all couples to face, but in a series of superpowered assassins, it does kind of make sense. So, I think we are going to see some level of Nabe and Big Guy's relationship, I think, reflected in Chinatsu and Gero's here. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, it's a unique story to tell because it's weird, and I appreciate that.
All right, Nick, we have a new Exorcist, Chapter 87, The Hall of Sins.
Yeah, there's too many characters that I don't know the names of in this, Quinn. So Shiroha is there, and Gakudokuro. He spots her and is like, appropriate vessel.
Okie dokie, as we're gonna call him.
Okie dokie. Gashidoki says like, all right, well there is an appropriate vessel for me. He tries to go for her. Bald dude says the array is complete and says to two people, hey, go and support Itsuki. And he teleports away with Shiroha. And immediately Gasha Donkey Kong says the bald one is probably the head of the family, and the girl is the only one he took when he fled, so she must be precious to the family. But on top of that, there's something else about her. So I guess I'll go after them. But he is confronted by the two girls that are sent to fight him, and they're in their like battle armor, and it is not armor. I don't know how to tell you this.
They developed armor specifically to accentuate their breasts, mostly, and
their butts. It seems.
I think that might be a mistake. I don't want to call it now, but I do think you would want armor to protect your organs and not to show off your boobs. But I might be mistaken.
The two of them confront him, as does Itsuki, and Gasha Dokadaka says, you all seem dead inside. That's no way to fight. But he also realizes this mansion's weird, and he thinks that there is an enormous presence enveloping the entire mansion as well. And so we cut to 400 meters below ground at the Hall of Sins. What is this facility? There is so much to it. That is an open goddamn courtyard below the earth.
It's very interesting to me because we sometimes joke that Oda like loves to draw little maps. Like he likes to let everyone know where everything is in relation to each other. I need that shit. Where the fuck are we? I thought we were at the top of this thing, and now we're at the this is actually the bottom? Wait, where are we? We were in the sewers before, weren't we?
In addition, there is a massive pit with a descending spiral staircase in the Hall of Sins that's going down, so it goes even further below ground, it would seem. Shiroha recalls that she once was here when she connected to Kyokatsu's main body. The family head instructs her to kneel. And we are told the sovereign ruler of the Fujino family, who has been alive for a very, very long time, is here! And it's brain?
Bum, 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 bum.
It's a shape. It's all crackly and
it's
stuff.
Exciting. It's evocative.
The thing complains that it's gotten noisy up on the surface, and the family head says, "Yeah, don't worry about it. We're just under attack or whatever."
Now, which thing would this be, Nick? The thing from the Fantastic Four, the thing from the Addams Family, or the thing from the Cat in the Hat?
I think it's the thing from the thing.
Okay. Fuck. That was the one I didn't even consider.
So Shiroha looks up at it, and so the thing says, "Oh, Shiroha's here too." Well, Kyokatsu won't be ready for a while. But the family head says, I just need to remove her contract with Kyokatsu." And the thing says, "I mean, you'll die as well." And the family head says, "It doesn't matter. The succession is secure. More importantly, the enemy is targeting Shiroha. I want to move on just in case they do take her." So the thing goes, "Okay." Bunch of hands grow out of it, and Butterfly comes out. Whee! And it says, "Follow me to the path to Kyokatsu changes every time, so don't go astray." And they, I guess, get down the stairs because they're surrounded by creepy things, and there's eyes that are going "ow" when Shiroha steps on them. And Shiroha is like, "All right, well, here I go."
Heels? Really?
What the fuck? Shiroha thinks to herself, "All right, I guess if I'm gonna go and sever this contract, which means I'm gonna die." And then this girl just goes, "Wonder what Yajima's doing." I mean, Nue's there, and I asked Makoto to stop him. I'm sure he'll be fine. And she steps on a face that goes, "Ah!" There's so many mouths, and they all just start screaming. And the family head says, "Is this the right path? Because there's a lot of screaming."
Usually there's not as much screening when we do this. And I didn't bring my golf shoes like last time. I knew I caught my earful for that.
Gashadoro Hidoro emerges from the ceiling and is like, "Oh, wow. Yeah, you," points at Shiroha. "You're contracted to the huge spirit down here, aren't you? Brilliant. You're with this horrific miasma all the time, yet you don't seem dead. I like you. Be my vessel." Just goes right up to her. The family head is very, very, very calm and declares, "Zanbo number 5, restraining soul chains 1 and 2 release," which Shiroha recognizes means he's summoning his Shikigami. And the family head goes, "Good grief. You might as well not have prepared at all." We cut over to Makoto?
Yep, sure. Why not?
Nue. And he says, "Are you sure it was a good idea to let Gakuro go?" And Nue, who is behind her screen, says, "Well, we need to drain the pus from the Fujino family before the battle with the Hyo, in any case." And she says, the battle's drawing near, and we've got to do it now. So she is questioned, however, by Makoto, saying, "But the Fujinos aren't a decent family, but they're like a pillar, though, of the Exorcist Bureau. So if we suppress them, that'll handicap us in the Hyo battle." And Nue says, "No."
All right, fair enough.
As they are. She says, however, the Hyo are involved with the Fujino family's roots in all likelihood, which means probably that there is some sort of connection between the Hyo and the big massive thing that we saw before. Anyway, the Shikigami gets released. It's got lots of ribs and lots of wings and lots of spines and what looks like a plague doctor mask for a head.
Mm-hmm. It's very cute.
And it comes out. Gasha... Ooh, I'm out.
Gasha Dandadan.
Gasha, go! Dice roll! Says, "That lord is shrewd, so even he's only a tool. I wonder what he's trying to do. That huge presence is getting closer, too. There's a cave. There's a presence coming out of it." But he realizes the path of failures is probably part of it. All the mouths around him are failures. So he's planning to do something flashy and summon it to him, I guess. So I better get this done fast. Someone's a bunch of swords around him, and they do things. There's impacts. We don't really see much of them. There's like tendrils that are flashing into the swords, but whatever. So he wants Shiroha. The family head says, "No, she's the Fujino's family tool." And Shiroha is just thinking to herself, like, what should I do? Which is a fair question to ask, even if you are like resigned to like just be used as a tool, because you're like, I've just got two people fighting over me to just do the same thing to me. I don't know what I should do.
There's also a lot of swords going around. Should I be like trying to get somewhere? Like, where do I go? This whole place sucks.
Gakuro shows up, of course, at that moment. He has been cloaked by Karasu Tengu, and he just grabs Shiroha, fully picks her up bridal style, and says, "This way, Fujino!" And he says, "Fujino's not a tool. She's a member of the 6th branch. That means she's coming with me! That's right! You guys can't decide what to do with her! I am!"
Fuck. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, we'll see what happens next week with Gasha Duel, and, maybe it'll be cool. I really have no idea what the fuck's supposed to happen. Isn't Gasha, whatever his name is, also fighting Fujino Fuckface or whatever? Long hair Fuckface Fujino dude from last chapter?
What?
All right.
I'm sorry, I just completely blanked out on the chapter after I was done reading it.
Who gives a shit? Akane-banashi, Nick!
Oh my god, it's story 147. Maybe all powerful. That meeting, we get a color page to start off with, the one between Akane, Gakumon, and oh gosh, I've forgotten her name, but half French girl. So we get then a 2-page color spread showing Akane growing up. When we first saw her in chapter 1 to when she was, in high school, getting ready to become a Rakugoka, to when she first becomes one, to now that she has had several years of maturity and stuff. It's very cute. So we get this explanation that there's a lot of classic Rakugo stories that are based on foreign culture and folk stories. And in fact, the God of Death originated in Europe. It was apparently a German tale that it's based on. And so now she's kind of like going out into the broader world beyond Japan and getting experience in like other cultures. And so Gakumon suggests like, okay, yeah, so it seems that maybe by doing that, it was to gain a broader appreciation of the arts, and that's why he had you hone your craft overseas. That's why Yusho did that. Although he says that that's also what Iken's thought was. Mm-hmm. But Akane says, I think that's part of it, but that his primary intent was something else. And she says in French, practice makes perfect. Cut to the present, and she is telling her learning to yawn class story. And the guy who is the student goes like, And so the teacher says, you're here to learn to yawn? Yeah, but I can't, just do the yawn you just did if you only showed it once. Can I see it one more time? And so the instructor says, yes, of course. The drifting smoke of tobacco. Boatman, take me upriver. Riding in a boat all day is so. And everyone yawns with Akane again. And Gakumon's granddaughter says to him, Aka's doing hard mode. And he says, what do you mean? And she says, France has no Rakugo masters. All subtitled, no ad-libs. Must match the timing. Always the same beat. You can't learn new Rakugo. Many restrictions. Which means she gets better at what she can do. And they kind of peek into a room where Akane is watching a tape of one of her performances, and she's just thinking to herself, like, what can I do here? Maybe I should be more emotional here. So it's narrowing her focus, essentially.
Yep.
So Gakumon says, like, okay, so she is examining and fixing the fundamentals. But will they appreciate the hard work away from her home territory? And his granddaughter says, it's fine. They can see the sights she seeks. And she says, I don't know, Rakugo. But you can tell she gets better if you don't. When she goes back to Japan and unties the ropes holding her down, Akka is maybe all powerful. So that's right. She's been wearing training weights this whole time.
Yeah, kaboom, kaboom. They're like, philosophical training weights and not actually physical, but it's still same thing. She's you've never even seen her at full power.
The most shonen thing. She's just like, I invented a way for her to be wearing training weights. So Akane goes back into the story in the present, and she's playing the part of the student now. And she's like, all right, well, I didn't know that there'd be, like stuff like this, but okay, I'll copy what you do. All right. First you take a puff of, oh, that's some good smoke. Oh, he just goes, it's like, oh, let me get another puff of that. Whoa. And then she does the rocking of the boats, but she's like, going like very rapidly back and forth. And so the teacher's like, no, subtly rocking, subtly. And of course, the explanation is she was so quiet, so restrained, so accentuated and perfect before, but now she is loud and wild and doing all of these crazy expressions. So the joke of the story, Yawning Lessons, is that there is a contrast in skill between the veteran teacher and the clumsy student. So she made the most out of expressing the quiet parts so that the sudden shift accentuates the absurdity. And this is visually compared to a slow ball to set up a fast ball. And Gakamon notes in the audience, you can't do this with subtitles because there's too much change in rhythm. With the growth of a performer comes a change to the world they describe. The earnestness of the art and the rambunctious comedy are the two poles that weave together a performance of pure freedom, a true kaleidoscope. And there is a visual behind Akane of like the very serious master and the cartoonishly amateurish student. And like the art style is shifted between them to accentuate the difference.
Yes.
And Gakamon realizes this is what she learned in France. The world of Rakugo that Akane Arakawa depicts.
It is good stuff. I like this chapter. I assume you did too, Nick.
It was cool. Let's finish up with One Piece, Quinn.
Yes, One Piece chapter 1140, Scopper Gabon. Way, our chapter title, also our title cover page has Ulti. She's having swords thrown at her. That's not cool, who's who. I hope you get your shit pushed in. So Luffy is like, hey, how come we have to get the key from you? Just give it to us. And Scopper's like, what's wrong? Can't do it. So Luffy's like,
all right, that's fighting words.
Go time. Zoro, though, does remember that, hey, that kid Colin said that his dad used to be a pirate and that they were able to hold their own against Elbaf's warriors. So Luffy starts just trying to grab the key. Gabon just keeps kind of moving it. And he's like, hey, look, old man, I kind of just want to get the key to get to Loki so I can get back to the feast. And he's like, then take it from me. And Luffy's like, fine, I will. He shoots his hand out, and Gabon jumps over it, uses Haki on the key, and smashes Luffy into the ground. Luffy comes out. Gabon kind of taunts him. He's like, it's a nice strat you got there. It'd probably look better on your head than on that helmet, or that helmet you have on. And Luffy's like, yeah, well, it's a treasure I'm holding for Shanks. And he's like, well, Shanks is kind of a cheapskate if he didn't even let you keep the hat. And he's like, no, you don't get it. But Gabon just shoves the key in Luffy's face, like literally into his mouth, and is like, you talk too much. Luffy gets sent away, and in that moment, Gabon pulls out two axes and prepares a move. And Zoro notices what's about to happen, screams out for Luffy to look out, and even jumps in front of the attack to block it, as a whole bunch of just like crazy slashes come out and cut apart this part of the castle. Everyone is terrified. Luffy and Zoro are like in it to win it now. Like Zoro has all three swords in his mouth. Luffy's gear 5. They're ready to go. Gabon has a little moment where he's like, indeed, all in white. And we see that piece of the castle falls all the way down to the underworld. I wonder if that's going to impact anything. The two of them, Luffy and Zoro, are ready to start a fight right now. They're going to get it. So Gabon looks at him, has that little glint in his eye, and he goes, I give up. They're both very upset, and he's just like, hey, you can have the key if you want. It's all good. there's a moment where Roto tries to tell them who Gaban is, and Gaban says, "Don't get a hold of yourself. Just, if Elbath's still standing after you guys have finished with everything here, come and see me," essentially. We see everyone's like, "I don't want to see you again. You sucked." But we see a little flashback that shows Shanks, it seems, asked Gaban to do this. And when Gaban was like, "What do you think? I'm just going to trust this guy?" Shanks said, "All right, good point. Do whatever you want with him then." So Shanks still trusts Luffy's character. Cut over to the school. All the children are pointing to the sky saying, "Hey, teacher, look, there's a bird, a weird bird in the sky." But the teacher doesn't see anything. And we see Gunko landing, and they know, like, hey, they even have a school. They're really, like, kind of serving this up for us. So she uses the summoning circle and summons two figures in a 2-page spread. One is Saint Summers, who shows up in his underwear in a chair and is in the middle of a phone call about when is this, like, transportation thing going to happen. And the other is Saint Killingham, who is late to the teleportation. He says, "Oh no, I'm in big trouble." His head is a dragon head, like a long, like Eastern style dragon head. I don't know if that's what he looks like or if this is a double fruit.
With a big old bubble around specifically the head. Yeah.
Yes, a lot of the saints do that. They'll have like little like masks over there. Gunko turns away, and I'm not sure if it's because she's supposed to be nervous that Saint Summers showed up without clothes on, or if she doesn't like Saint Killingham. I don't know if I'm supposed to take note of this or not. She just very notably like blushes and turns her attention away when they show up. Summers is like, "What the fuck? Why are we here?" That he is allowed to get dressed, essentially. And he's like, "What's essentially going on?"
He's not just Frankie the whole time. No.
Yes. Yeah. He says, "Hey," or Shamrock rather is like, "Hey, we only needed one of you. Why are you both here?" And Killingham says, "Because you're going back, Commander. Orders from above." And Summers notes like, "Yeah, the situation in the Holy Land is pretty dire right now." Earlier, he brings up the lack of food and everything like that. So he's like, "Your presence will benefit everybody there, Shamrock." And he asks like, "Hey, what's going on in this country?" Cut over to the next page. He's been explaining the plan. He's like, "Got it. Kidnap some kids. Take them to the Holy Land." They're too big to like stuff into sacks though. And we can't teleport with them. So I guess we're going to have to actually like sail back with them. But Shamrock just finished this chapter by saying, "Well, with your powers, you could make it into a game." Dun, 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 dun. These are both Holy Knights, by the way. I didn't say that, but these are both members of the Holy Knights as well. So we are seeing now 2 members of that group, or 4 members, I guess, total.
Yeah. I guess that we may not be getting anything with Shamrock for a little bit if he's just going to go back to the Holy Land, which is, I guess, if you're going to make a big deal out of like, hey, this person who's related to Shanks, then, you know, maybe put off having him involved in some way for a little bit, build that up a bit more. But I don't know, I'm not nearly as excited by Summers and Killingham, even though Killingham has a very strange and eye-catching design.
I actually really like the design for Summers a lot. Like, I think he just looks cool in a way that like One Piece characters don't always, like their antagonists. Like, I feel like Oda's kind of run through a lot of good designs, so sometimes you just get like Buffalo and shit like that. One of those dudes you're like, all right, whatever. But I am very interested to see where this is going to go. Whenever I hear a specific number like 10, I think, a perfect number of characters for the Straw Hats to all have their own one-on-one fights against. But maybe One Piece isn't going to do that. Maybe they're going to beat up a couple of these guys here, and then we're going to fight the rest of them in Marriagetoxin or somewhere else. Who knows?
That's true. That's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, everybody. So we're going to wrap things up by saying our favorites. Why don't you tell me, because you already said your MVP, so what's your chapter of the week?
I'm going to give my chapter of the week to One Piece. I did enjoy this chapter. We didn't get a ton of time to talk about it, but I did like the introduction of these 2 new characters.
I am going to say that my favorite chapter this week, I actually think that it was probably Akane-banashi.
There you go.
A number that I quite liked, but I really liked just the visualization. It's not anything insane in terms of like, oh, why is Akane better? And it's like, well, kind of a reason that we've seen before, which is accentuating the difference in styles, but I really like the way that it's depicted here. My favorite character, I think I'm also just going to go for Misery. I thought that she had a great debut in this. I liked every joke that involved her, and she made a great first impression.
All right. The audience, by the way, agreed with Misery as character of the week, and they agreed with me with One Piece as the chapter of the week. A lot of good stuff this week. All right, Nick, take us out.
All right, that's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. We are here on twitch.tv/RoloT Wednesdays at around 7:30 Eastern Time. To know exactly when we're going live, you can join us on social media or on the Discord. Discord will be linked wherever this gets posted to. Also, we have just a great, cool community that talks about chapters as they come out, the series that we'll be covering for the recap, and all kinds of other things. You can also use that to find the Google Doc maintained by Ninja X3i. Also, check out WMR Votes for voting associated on a weekly basis, and also like supplementary awards and other things and stuff. Vote. Let us know what you like in manga, basically. We would like to thank Mile Jack Stilitz and Winsdale Cheddar for creating the opening sequence of the video version of Manga Recap, youtube.com/Recap, which also features occasional title cards by Steve Man, who's artwork you can buy by just searching for Steve Man Art. We are also on Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap. We did a bonus episode recording recently, so watch out for that, because it's graphic content. And also, you get bonus content on there, and you can help financially support the podcast if you become a subscriber. We are also, you can find the audio version of the show on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, iTunes, Spotify, other podcast type places. Okay.
All right. Well, we have to pick a new recommendation, Nick.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but I already picked my recommendations and I put them together into a list from 1 to 5. Yeah.
Right. So we did 2.
We did 2. And that was Gamblefish.
Okay. All right. Well, look at my hand. You see that? It's 4 fingers. You know what that means? It means we're covering whatever the 4th one is.
All right, Nick, I hope you're looking forward to covering the recently ended Mission Yozakura Family in full.
Oh, no.
I told you it gets worse the further in you go.
Oh, no. All right. Here we go.
All right.